A girl's voice, urgent and sharp. Yoshito, fall back. These opponents are way out of your league. The blonde says it out of nowhere, catching our boy off guard. Yuri pulls him behind her, saying the same thing. It's too much for someone like him. The team jumps into the fight while the protagonist just stands there. Everyone really thinks he's just dead weight. Lizardmen closing in from every direction. The girl's covering him, then the big guy with the shield gets hit clean and knocked back. But he lands right on a trap that breaks the floor under Yoshito. He screams, but his voice fades as he falls. Then suddenly, he shifts his body. Instead of falling like a ragdoll, he takes control and dives faster into the lower chamber. A new threat waiting for him down there. Not one lizardman. Multiple lizard commanders crawl out from every corridor, boxing him in. These aren't the weak ones from above. These are the ones that were giving his teammates real trouble. The creatures watch him like prey. They think this is easy. Yoshito stands up slowly, grabs his sword. His expression shifts. His eyes narrow. He tells the creatures they're going to regret bringing him down here. In a flash, he rushes in and tells them to get ready. The dungeon turns into a brutal fight. Poor lizard bros are losing their heads. Bodies getting dropped. The ones who try to run get caught in a second. He tears through them one after another. A whole army in front of him. But he knows those girls on the upper floors are at risk now that he's not there. He needs to move fast. Final swing. The last lizard man backs away in fear. Yoshito walks toward it calmly. I'll make this quick. He finishes it. He spots a door, a path back to the 4th floor. He walks through it. He steps back onto the 4th floor, tired but untouched. Yuri spots him and shouts his name, running over, checking every part of him for injuries. She's practically creaming herself. She's that happy a weakling like him didn't die alone down there. Mana walks up, more careful. Asks straight up, were you attacked by monsters? Pause. Yoshito gives a calm smile. Nah, nothing happened. Bro just left a pit full of wrecked lizard commanders behind him, but he's keeping it to himself so they don't worry. Mana tells him Nogishi panicked, figured Yoshito was dead, and ran to the boss room with his crew. Yoshito isn't surprised. He thanks both girls for worrying about him. They look at each other, a little caught off guard, and smile. Now let's hurry. We need to catch up to Nogishi. But out of nowhere, a surviving lizard man with its sword raised lunges straight at Yuri from behind. Yoshito's eyes go wide. He screams her name. Yuri turns around confused, right as the blade comes down. Mana starts to react, but Yoshito launches himself forward so hard the stone floor cracks under his feet. He gets there first, blocks the hit, and smashes the creature back with one strike. It goes flying. Silence. Mana stares. That speed wasn't normal. Yuri, still shaking, thanks him quietly. Yoshito, embarrassed, can barely get a word out. Mana thinks the awkward moment is funny, but then pushes. How did you react that fast? He gives a grin. Guess you finally noticed I'm not totally useless. Then his face gets serious. From now on, I'm not dead weight anymore. They reach the 5th floor. The mid-boss room door stands right in front of them. Mana explains. 10 floors total. This room is the midpoint. She and Yuri found it first, but Nogishi's crew took it from them. Yoshito steps inside. Red flames and a dude flying through the air hits the wall hard. One of Nogishi's teammates crumbling on impact. The Orc Lord stands in the center. Nogishi is still on his feet, cocky but about to get folded. He tells Yoshito not to get involved. Fires up his Aegis Mimesis, the unique gear he never shuts up about, supposed to block any attack. He charges the Orc Lord, lands some hits, looks solid. For a second, it actually looks like it's working. Nogishi grins, asks Yoshito if he's watching, brags about the gap between a real challenger and a chicken. The Orc Lord goes down. Then, behind the fallen boss, a chest shows up, glowing hard. Nogishi's eyes go wide with greed. A rare item, better than anything he's ever found. Yoshito's stomach drops. Something feels wrong. He shouts, Nogishi, don't open that. Too late. Nogishi rips it open. Nothing inside. A blinding light blows up and swallows the whole room. When it fades, everyone is somewhere completely different. The air feels heavier. A massive throne room. Nogishi thinks he's felt this pressure before, only ever on the top floor of a tower. Thick smoke rolls across the ground. A giant hand moves in the dark, furious eyes staring back. The Ogre Emperor rises from its throne, the boss of the entire magic tower. It charges. One punch destroys the concrete floor. The shockwave knocks everyone off balance. Nogishi rushes in with Aegis Mimus and gets smacked aside like nothing. His body slams the ground. The skill won't activate because his body is too damaged. He's done. His teammates scream his name and run to him. Yoshito yells at them to stay back. They don't listen. The ogre hits them too. Swords hit the floor. Mana spots a magic seal forming. No way out. Yuri whispers, scared. Are we going to die here? The ogre turns toward Yuri. She closes her eyes. Burst of light. Yoshito steps forward. Sword out. He knows the numbers. His stats aren't enough to beat a tower boss head on, but he has something no one else does. He can afford to lose. His plan, wear it down. Die as many times as it takes. He charges, lands a hit on the ogre's head. His teammates watch in shock. He's fighting it alone. The ogre hits back. Yoshito gets sent flying. He wonders if he's already hit his limit. The ogre hits him again. Mana gasps. Yoshito dies. His friends stare. But then the debuff panel flashes. Skill inversion kicks in. His agility spikes. He's back. Faster than before. His friends are lost, talking over each other. They know about infinite resurrection and its brutal penalty. They don't get how he's still fighting. Still getting stronger. Yoshito comes back again. Checks his stats. Not the right one yet. He needs a specific boost. He waits for the killing blow. Actually wants it. He dies. Comes back. Looks at his hands. Different now. The stat he needed finally hit. With the extra agility, a new message pops up. Respawn relocation unlocked. He can choose where he shows up within a 3-meter range. He grins. That's going to be useful. He picks a spot right behind the ogre's blind side. Respawns there. The ogre doesn't see it coming. Yoshito drives his sword in from behind. Mana, watching from across the room. How did he get there so fast? He keeps going. Strike after strike. He thinks for a second about Nogishi and the others. Annoying as they were, he never wished anything bad on them. But right now, his only goal is taking this thing down. The ogre turns, and for the first time the fight is even. Yoshito lines up one last big attack. The ogre can't keep up. Yoshito's speed is past it now. The hit lands clean. The ogre emperor roars and drops. Done. Yoshito lets out a breath. A unique gear drop and a magic stone appear. Before he can even think, Yuri crashes into him with a hug. She says she's so glad he made it. But then Mana gets serious. She thanks him, says, if he hadn't won they'd both be dead. But the way he fights is crazy. She had to watch him die over and over. That hurt to see. Yoshito softens, says sorry for making them watch all that, then quiet but sure of himself. But no matter how many times it happens, I'll always come back, even though dying that many times is really painful. The timer goes off. Boss defeated, moving everyone out in 10 seconds. The tower is falling falling apart. Yoshito looks around at the beaten challengers on the ground, says he'll never forget what they went through. The tower breaks apart piece by piece and disappears. A clean office. A woman. Rito Fuyune stares at a screen showing the empty lot where the Hermes Tower used to be. 3 girls paying attention already. Let's go. Now how is this guy soloing dungeons if everyone thinks he's weak? Back in his old life, bro was stuck doing dead-end part-time jobs after high school. Then a tower showed up and he made the desperate call to become a challenger. A merchant sold him the infinite resurrection skill. He spent every last coin, then went into debt on top of it. He did whatever it took to buy that skill, but he had no idea what it would cost him. The penalty was brutal. His stats dropped every time he died. First death took 50 defense points, and he almost died for real on the next run. Then he lost 70 more, then 250 HP, then agility, a skill that was slowly destroying him. Now considering he would have been dead without it, it wasn't a total loss, but if he'd had something decent, he might not have died in the first place. Then came the gold skill stone on a floor he'd never seen before, a death corridor, built to be impossible, but he had lives to burn. He died dozens of times just to grab that one treasure, and then he got it, the inversion. Every negative flipped to positive. The moment the trash skill became the most broken ability out there, he gets stronger every time he dies, just as magically as it appeared. Yoshito looks like he still can't believe it. He looks at his own hand, realizing that if that imposing tower is vanishing, there's a reason. He clenches his fists as it slowly sinks in. He was the one responsible for clearing that tower. With a multicolored glow, the tower finishes fading into nothingness, while Yoshito keeps staring at what he did. With a subtle smile he can't hide, Yoshito tries to hold back his emotions, and finally manages to hide the excitement that scene gave him. Yoshito hears the chatter around him. The rumors are that the Hermes boss had been defeated. Someone asked if another challenger had already made it past the 5th floor. Others wondered if someone had rushed it, and that way wiped out the boss. Lost in thought, he answers silently to himself that the one who beat the boss was him, Takamichi Yoshito himself. Still, he'd feel better if it hadn't happened, because he never meant to hurt anyone for no reason. But he had to admit that a first tower clear was something incredible. He figures it's better to keep a low profile and not show his pride. He knows it's not a good idea to go around revealing his achievements, especially when it's about defeating the powerful Hermes, so he keeps trying to slip out of there quietly. But before he can dodge away, he hears voices in the background. It was Meina and Yuri, who get all hyped up when they see him, wanting to know every detail of the epic battle, including what rewards he got for winning. Everyone around is staring at him, and he ends up feeling awkward. Once again, the whispers start, but now he's the center of attention. Some random comment about his resurrection skill being trash grabs attention. Whoever was talking keeps going, saying that even with that trash skill he still managed to beat Hermes. Maybe all that commotion made the hero thirsty. He slips past the people around him. He turns to the 2 of them and says they finally managed to get away from all that chaos. They asked about every detail, about the weapons he used, and the methods he used to pull off the win. And in the middle of the mess, someone even invited him to join a little group. Mana apologizes for not being more discreet, and Yoshito drinks his soda. Yuri says that if he took down Hermes, he had to deal with the fact he'd end up being the center of attention. Yoshito seems to have liked hearing Yuri describe him as dominant. Yoshito goes back to thinking about the recent battle. He feels weird for judging himself as a bad challenger, thinking about the sacrifice he made to buy the infinite resurrection stone. He comes to the conclusion he didn't mess up by choosing that skill. Yuri takes advantage of him talking about his skill to ask something. She wants to know if there aren't any debuffs when he loses his life during a fight. Yoshito gets kind of confused and has a hard time explaining. He looks for the best words. It's hard for him to explain the inversion to them. His expression intimidates Yuri and she feels embarrassed, saying she didn't mean to pressure him. Stopping to think about it, he figures that topic is way too serious and important to just go around talking about Mana. Cuts into his thoughts, suggesting he leave that explanation for another time. Staring right at him, Mana has her doubts too. She wants to know what the reward was, like what kind of gear he got for defeating Hermes. The protagonist tosses the empty can into the trash and tells her to wait, managing to escape the duo's interrogation. Yoshito is intrigued when he realizes he can't open a window. Mana explains there's no way to open the panel window to check his status. That would only be possible if they were inside the tower, but it doesn't exist anymore. Explaining like she's talking to a kid, she goes on to say a window only opens when a challenger is in the tower. There are also each person's skills, but challengers' powers are limited to the tower and don't work outside. Exactly so. Challengers don't go around using their skills for just anything, but there's a single exception to that rule. The only place challengers can use their powers besides the towers is on the lot where an extinct tower used to be. Yoshito notices a different vibration, like some unexplainable energy running through his body. Then he realizes that this whole time he was standing exactly on the lot of Hermes' extinct tower. Looking around, he feels like he'll never get used to the weird feeling and the energy a place where a tower used to be has. Knowing that Yoshito manages to open the window to access his panel, and it opens, finally revealing what item he got from his victory. The image shows a magnificent Falsamenos. Eager to collect his reward, he taps the image of the sword that appears on the screen. The panel gives off a huge bright light that blinds everyone for a few moments. Buzzing with excitement over his new prize, Yoshito feels the power of Falsamenos as it starts to materialize as energy in his hands. Yoshito proudly holds for the first time his new sword. In a bright red tone like nothing ever seen, that was definitely a one-of-a-kind weapon. The girls talk about the reward. Yoshito looks at the Falsamenos sword he won. He slices through the air, testing its lightness and flexibility. Already thinking about his next mission in the tower, the 2 girls watch him talk. Meina then has a brilliant idea. She calls out to the boy to get his attention, and then suggests they form a team together next time. Yuri gets excited and starts yelling that she wants to be part of it too. As she jumps around asking to join, the 2 of them look at her like they're seeing a bratty kid. Pulling herself together, the young woman asks if they'd let her take part. Yoshito smiles when he sees her reaction, and confirms that of course she can. After all, they're all friends. The two of them celebrate for finally managing it. Yoshito looks at Mana, not understanding. She leans in close to his face and excited asks what the next tower they should go to is, suggesting something on a similar scale to Hermes. With a sadistic smile, she makes another, bolder suggestion, more daring, a bigger magic tower, and then he suggests challenging Zeus. The young guy thinks it over. They pay attention to his reasoning. After leaving Hermes, there's a place he wants to go to right away. With her expectations high, Yuri asks where. Surprisingly, the young guy says Tokyo. To the Challengers Management Agency. The girls are disappointed. Mana wants to know why not go to a magic tower. The boy explains that the agency buys magic stones and other stuff for a much higher price than the tower stalls. His plan is to go there to trade his items for money, admitting he needs to do that because he bought Infinite Revival and ended up totally broke. Mana and Yuri look at him with pity. The headquarters of the government agency that supports adventurers is a building that towers over the city. In the control room, a bunch of panels show updates on all the towers, and weapons, items, and stones are traded at a fair price. There's a lot of theft and exploitation at the tower stalls, while transactions at the agency are more trustworthy. And since the market was built right next to the building, there are no restrictions on the challengers' powers either. Among the rewards for clearing Hermes are unique weapons and lots of magic stones. Yoshito looks around and figures he's going to make a lot of money. The clerk welcomes him and asks if he'd like to trade his items. He opens his panel and clicks on the stones, wondering how many he even has, since he still hasn't gone in to count them. Suddenly, a huge mountain of gemstones appears on the counter, leaving the clerk stunned. As if that wasn't enough, one more tiny little stone drops onto her head. Even Yoshito can't believe it. After the shock, the clerk continues with the exchange procedure. With his hands shaking, he thinks this is the end of his debts. Walking away with a fat payout, he feels like the richest guy in the world. Yoshito walks over to the girls and thinks about how he's going to spend all that cash. Yuri says he'd better not spend it recklessly. Mana intimidates him, saying he'd better not blow it all and end up in debt again. The young guy feels awkward but agrees with his friend. Suddenly, walking through the place, he ends up face to face with a woman. Yoshito looks surprised by the encounter. Still mysterious, she says she heard he was in the building, so she decided to look for him. They stare at each other for a moment. The young guy doesn't seem to get why someone like her wants to talk to him. The woman introduces herself as Rito Fuyune, the head of the agency. She steps closer and asks if she can have a moment with the conqueror of the Hermes Tower. Saying his full name, she shows she knows exactly who he is. The young guy thinks that face looks really familiar. He knows that among the management members who gather challengers, she's the strongest of them all. Seems like she was recruited by the agency after she conquered 3 magic towers all by herself as a challenger. Becoming a star, she shows up in agency campaigns and ads broadcast all over the city. Rito keeps staring at him, waiting for an answer. So he asks what the agency president wants with him. She raises her hand, saying that first of all, she wants to hear everything about how he conquered the Hermes magic tower. Yoshito listens to her with attention and suspicion. Finally, she adds that second, she wants to test the true power of the new conqueror. The 4 of them walk down the corridors. The young guy has already started telling what happened, and Mana thinks it'd be a good idea to report the traps to the other challengers. Rito thanks the boy for telling her about it and says that as for the challenger Nogishi and his team, they will inform the families about the deaths. Her look turns melancholy, and she explains it's not uncommon for challengers to lose their lives in the towers, which is pretty obvious, she comments. Then she says that still, it hurts in a way. Yoshito lets out a sigh. He bites his lips as he thinking about all the tragedies he's witnessed. He concludes that up until now, they've been telling themselves there was nothing they could do about it. Suddenly, his eyes fill with tears, and he admits that yes, it really is painful. Walking slowly, he concludes with relief that it's good to think that way. Finally, they enter a chamber, and the woman explains that this is the agency's training room. The trio watches as she works the panel. A sword appears in the young guy's hands. Looking at the weapon, the young guy asks if it's really a sword since it looks kind of dull, and Rito explains it's the type they use in training. Getting started, she says the boy can handle it without worry. Striking her own sword on the floor, Rito challenges him and says she'll let him fight her so he can understand the real power of a dominator, which is also one of the agency chief's responsibilities. Yoshito says that's not an offer he can refuse. Mana is excited to see it and tells the boss to fight with energy. The young man gets ready. He takes his stance and says if he has to do this, then he's going to take it very seriously. Rito asks if he's ready, and Yoshito confirms he is in silence, staring at her from across the way. The young man thinks about how his opponent is the legendary agency chief, but valuing his own personal power, he thinks about how he beat a boss and believes he's a stronger opponent than she's expecting. Taking her stance, she announces the start of the fight, and before she even finishes speaking, she vanishes from the young man's sight at the speed of light. Suddenly, she reappears right in his face, is about to strike with quick reflexes. Yoshito jumps up in shock, but manages to dodge, gritting his teeth in anger. Rudy stays relentless on the attack, charging at him non-stop at an unbelievable speed. Trapped between her many blows coming from different directions, the young man blocks them all with difficulty. Managing to break free, he goes all out, but she reacts incredibly fast. He breaks out in a cold sweat when he sees that building momentum. She flies over his head and he ducks so he won't get pierced through. Yoshito tries to catch her movements out of the corner of his eye, but she creates a micro-explosion from the impact of her movements. Yoshito slides away. He looks tired and realizes that this power is on a whole different level. Watching her walk threateningly toward him, he thinks about how he managed to defeat the chief after dying several times, but he's still nowhere near this dominator, who cleared tower after tower without dying even once. And then he has an epiphany. Remembering everything he's been through up to that point, he concludes he kept going even in the worst scenarios, even after dying over and over again, so there's no reason for him to feel inferior, comparing himself to her like that. Rethinking his strategy, he figures that if he can't win just by defending, then he's going to take advantage of the fact that anyone else would keep their distance from the imminent risk of death, but not him. Rudy closes in. Unstoppable, Yoshito's eyes shine like red flames, and he stares her down with everything he's got. Surprised, Rudy slows her movements, but Yoshito doesn't back off and rushes in with his sword, striking at her quickly, but she dodges like a ninja, throwing her body backward. The young man can't believe it. She counters with even more force than before, and her sword shines like the sun. The young man's teeth chatter from nerves. Rudy admits she didn't see that coming. He regains his composure and hits her with the facts, saying that if she were a monster, she'd be able to dodge that attack without any problem after all. She blocks his strike with her sword, then she drives her sword straight at him with everything she's got, and the young man keeps talking, saying that if she hadn't hesitated, it would have been a one-sided fight. Rudy keeps moving her weapon with skill while he dodges Yoshito. Still tries to finish his analysis, noting that his opponent underestimated him, thinking he wouldn't defend himself, and that's why she hesitated. Even so, he doesn't think it was generosity on her part, explaining that Rudy still doesn't understand his fighting style, which made her freeze up on instinct. With blue eyes, he says he took advantage of the opening, admitting he has infinite revival, which makes him superior in a way, so he readies himself for another strike. Rudy listens to everything he says in silence, and keeps blocking his attacks, apologizing for how unfair it is. Yoshito says that if it's not like this, there's no other way to win. The woman's eyes glare at him in anger. Once again, she jumps back, dodging one of his strikes. Meanwhile, she thinks she got a report about infinite revival. Now she knows he can come back from the dead and face any challenge without fear of dying. She studies him up close, trying to keep up with his actions. The boy gives off an intense, steaming reddish glow, and Rudy concludes that this is a terrifying ability. She finally lands a hit near his face, and about the hesitation, she says it won't happen a second time. The young man admits the hit hurt a lot. Their gazes meet, and now her green eyes also shine with fury. Sneaky, she slips away from his sword once again. Yoshito scoffs that compared to dying, her hit didn't even hurt that much. Rudy raises her sword up, ready for the duel. With a smile, pulling her weapon back, she says she understands his power now, and acknowledges that she lost this time. However, all of a sudden, Yoshito throws himself to the ground. The boss doesn't understand what happened. With a lot of effort, he starts to speak, exhausted and hurt. He says he doesn't care who lost or won because he needs a doctor. Then he passes out right there in front of her, and the girls Yuri and Mana run over to help him. Out of nowhere, he gets up like normal, saying he almost died. Rudy stares at him, saying he didn't die, and he tries to explain that that's not the point. Disappointed, he gives up trying to explain and just asks if he can leave. The boss says no and tells him they still need to have an important talk. The young man doesn't get it, and she starts explaining that she's noticed his power is above the average rate among the members, and because of that, she'd like to make a special request of him. His friends are impressed, and Mana can barely believe it, because the reward for a request coming from her is the biggest there is. Rudy explains that the reward can be paid in cash, and he's sure the amount will be more than satisfying for him. The young man hesitates, and even though he's grateful, he wants to know the details of the request. The boss explains that just a few hours ago, the agency detected the opening of a new tower. Security sent by the company is guarding the entrance, which for now is closed. Her proposal is that the young man be the first to go in there to gather valuable information. The tower's name is Persephone, and there's a preliminary investigation underway, but this is a request she can only make to him. The head of the management department gives Yoshito the mission to investigate the Tower of Persephone, a task only he can carry out. Yoshito asks if normally someone from the department itself wouldn't investigate the new tower. Rito Fuyune answers that they already sent out the department's challengers, which surprises the young man. 2 groups have already been sent to the tower, and out of those 10 people, none came back. Yuri asks if not even a single person returned, and shocked, Mana says it's impossible that nobody managed to come back. The boss says she also believed that was impossible. However, all the challengers assigned to the investigation were found dead at the tower entrance, and all of them showed signs that they tried to escape but ran out of strength before they could. That hits Yoshito hard, and he asks if the entrance area isn't supposed to be safe. Fuyune says yes, it should be a protected space and monsters shouldn't appear. On top of that, she also thinks about the fact that the bodies don't show injuries caused by any beast, meaning they still don't know what or who took them down. The agency boss says that when she received the report about the situation, she only requested that the bodies be recovered. As the scene shows the inside of the magical tower, the woman finishes by saying they really don't know what happened to the challengers. They only know the groups didn't make it past the entrance. And that's the reality of the Tower of Persephone. Yoshito concludes he got the mission to investigate the place because of his infinite resurrection ability. Fuyune asks the boy to understand that she's not using him like he's disposable, but she can't let more people from the department die facing the protagonist. The boss asks if he accepts the mission. Yoshito looks her straight in the eyes. He lets out a resigned sigh and agrees to do the tower investigation. A new day brings the boy to the magical Tower of Persephone. Yoshito takes in the safe area on the first floor. He takes a deep breath, calm. He puts his hands on his face and focuses. The hero decides to start his job to find out what happened to the department's challengers. Before doing anything, he remembers Yuri crying, worried about him, while Mana holds the girl. The boy draws his sword and starts his task. After all, they're counting on him to do it. He's looking at the blade when a strange sound comes up. The noise comes from the end of the hallway. Through the fog, a horde of armed skeletons appears, marching toward Yoshito. They move faster and faster, and start attacking the boy. But the protagonist takes them all down with a single swing of his sword. The new sword is light and easy to handle. Excited, he gets ready to test the weapon even more, but then he hears another noise that freezes him in place. He looks up, searching for where the sound is coming from. Suddenly, a blast of wind forces him to shield himself with his arms. He tries to push the cloud of smoke away with a few swings, but a red alert pops up. He watches it closely. That's when Yoshito finds out what defeated the challengers, who went into the tower before him. On the red screen, he reads that Persephone's curse has been activated, and now he only has a few minutes left to live. He thinks about how that abnormal condition got triggered. Still in the middle of the fog, Yoshito says the agency did the right thing, sending him on that mission. Normal challengers would panic if they saw something like that. If someone manages to get out of the magic tower, any abnormal condition gets cancelled. The ones hit by the curse must have sprinted like crazy toward the exit. Even if they'd reached the safe area, the curse triggered when they were one step away from getting out. Now it makes sense there weren't any injuries on the bodies, because they lost their lives because of an abnormal condition. The protagonist looks at the smoke in front of him. It starts spreading through the whole place, but the guy isn't scared. He's ready for anything. After they threw the curse at him, the mission was completed. According to him, they really shouldn't underestimate him that much. Now he's got only 18 seconds left to live, and the curse is going to end up getting reversed by the inversion. The young man gives a satisfied smile because thanks to that, his body is better than ever. So he decides to follow that fog. His eyes stay alert, scanning around while he wonders if he should do this. Either way, the curse is coming again, and if this keeps up, no challenger will be able to conquer the tower. Now that fog is getting even thicker. He watches the place he's in carefully. That has to be the source of that whole curse. Out of the corner of his eye, he notices something, and an energy sucks in everything around it. Takamichi watches it with focus and curiosity. All of a sudden, a shadow creature shows up, flying over the area. That's the gate guardian of the cursed source. The creature looks pretty pissed off. Quickly, the protagonist gets ready to attack. The guardian growls and readies its power. The purple fog spreads all over its body. The boy freaks out at all that smoke, but the creature keeps going, now with its power spiraling. Terrifying. The monster yells something, and then Takamichi gets it. That guardian controls that whole place. Even the stacked curses are overflowing with its thirst to take lives. Suddenly, some skeletons rush toward the guy. Looks like the guardian called in other monsters for the party, and they all surround the young boy with his sword. He manages to defend himself from the attacks, but one in particular hits him dead on. Tired and with a few injuries, he feels pain. Then he drops to the ground. He lost his life one more time. The creature growls again like it's laughing, and waking up from his condition, the guy asks what's so funny. Now his condition has been restored again. That must be a shame for the monsters. That tower's curse is no big deal. Just the best HP potion the protagonist could ever want. With his sword and determination, he manages to chop the guardian into several pieces, but something feels different. All of a sudden, the source of the curse was gone. What made the challengers lose their lives was an abnormal condition coming from a curse. Raito Fuyune never imagined something like that could exist, and asks if there's anything they can do to contain it. Confident, the protagonist says yes and tosses something to her. The boss takes the vial and looks at it carefully. After Takamichi took out the monster that came from the source, the water was purified, and that's where he got it. Persephone's holy water removes curses and prevents new attacks, so even regular challengers will be able to move forward. He also took a look at the third floor, and he realized each floor has its own curse source. To move forward, you have to go up one floor at a time, purifying it and getting the holy water. The woman gives a satisfied smile, and thanks him for the report. Now that tower can be reopened. The mission was completed, and she congratulates Takamichi on the good work. All of a sudden, she hands him something, and it's a lot of money. Seeing how shocked the young man is, she asks if that's enough, and he agrees. Now he's walking with his head down, and he grips his briefcase tight while thinking about the huge amount of cash he's got. Feeling weird, he has no idea what to even spend that on. Even so, a few days go by. The guy paid off his debt by buying infinite resurrection. But even then, he still had a ton of money left, so he went straight to a luxury store. Now he's wearing expensive, super stylish clothes. He looks up at the blue sky with a sigh. He's feeling different. But Mana's voice snaps him out of it. The girls talk about the tower being reopened, and consider inviting Yoshito to challenge it. He panics when he realizes those voices are his friends. He turns, trying to get away from there without being recognized. The girls walk past him without noticing him, and the young man lets out a sigh of relief. But Mana feels something weird and looks back. That man with his back turned looks like someone. She walks up to get a better look, and she freaks out when she realizes who that person is. She calls out to Yoshito, and the boy asks if she really had to make that disgusted face. He says he's made a lot of money recently, and didn't know what to spend it on. Yuri says he actually looks pretty cool. Mana changes the subject, so they'll stop talking about that ridiculous outfit, and invites him to challenge Persephone's tower. But the boy asks why she wants to go there so badly, since it's a really dangerous place. She says the stones there must be selling for a lot, and all the skilled challengers are heading there. Yuri says that in just a few days they've climbed about 10 floors. Mana says it's totally unfair that only he has tons of money, so he should help them get some too. Smitten, young Yuri says she can go anywhere, as long as it's with Yoshito. The guy starts considering it, since they just need to bring holy water so they don't risk losing their lives, so they decide to take on Persephone. But first, Takamichi has to do something. He needs to change his clothes ASAP. In the tower, a man is on the ground, desperate. In his hand, we see an almost empty vial. His teammates are down too. Dead, a hooded creature haunts the place. Its body is nothing but a skeleton, and its eyes glow with rage. That's the 10th floor of the magic tower. A skeleton grips a sword, ready to attack, but the protagonist's sword blocks its strike. He's got a dark, dangerous aura, and he stares at the creature with determination. Then the skeleton realizes this is where it ends. Takamichi is level 16, and looks down with disdain. His friends clap for him, because he's way stronger now. He says that after taking out so many creatures, it's normal for his level to be higher. It doesn't change his stats, but if his level were low, people would question it, so it's better to raise it a bit more. The holy water effect is going to wear off soon, but apparently there aren't any risks. Still, it's better to drink it just in case. The boy turns to the girls. He wonders whether he should drink it or not, because he's afraid of getting cursed again. He glances back out of the corner of his eye, and realizes he needs to quickly tell the others about his reversal. He starts to say something, but he's interrupted by a huge creature that barges in. He yells for Yuri and Mana to get out of there, but the monster is fast and manages to attack Yuri, dragging her away. In desperation, his friend screams his name, and the vial of holy water falls to the ground. The skeleton moves away with the girl. Now she's under its possession and control. The creature even hurts her with its strength. Then to make things worse, the fog starts taking over the place. Curious, Yuri watches the new alert closely. The girl was cursed with only 120 seconds to live. That's that monster's power, and now she won't be able to drink the holy water anymore. Furious, her friend charges toward it. Determined to save her with her weapon, she's ready to attack, but the creature manages to stop her rush. The girl watches, not understanding what's happening. She gets thrown back by the force of that power. Yuri, desperate, calls out to her friend Takamichi, tells his teammate to fall back immediately. Now he's the one who's going to handle this. His sword slams straight into the creatures. He's determined to end this. His expression is fierce, almost demonic. But the creature is boiling with irritation too. The fight between them gets even more intense, and the protagonist doesn't understand why. Up to now, he hasn't landed a single hit. It looks like that creature is way more powerful than he thought. It starts moving toward them again, and the warrior keeps wondering why that is. The monster seems to be only defending itself. Rudder, attacking Mana, says they need to be quick because there are less than 90 seconds left before Yuri loses her life. Meanwhile, the young girl screams for help. The red-eyed creature is right beside her. Creepy, it even lets out a laugh, and now it seems even stronger and more imposing. That's the Soul Purger. All of a sudden, Takamichi understands everything. That thing is waiting for the holy water effect to wear off so it can attack. It's counting on the challenger's fear, but either way, the Purger shouldn't underestimate him. And then with all his fury, he charges at that monster. The boy is furious at being underestimated. He lunges at the creature. Now the two are face to face. The monster even becomes alert, curious about it. The guy, though, keeps his stance steady and defiant. He leaps toward the beast, but the monster backs off, running away from the fight. So Mana and Yoshito decide they have to chase it. They both start running at full speed. Suddenly, something catches their attention. The creature is in the back with Yuri, and in front of them there are countless undead. The purifier orders his servants to attack. Then the protagonist realizes they were both lured there, and he asks if Mana is scared, but she gives a little smirk, like she'd ever get scared that easily. She uses a weapon to attack, and her strikes are so precise, they split the creature's bodies apart. And the best part is she's still just warming up with a smile. The warrior asks if she can keep this up. With a determined look, she says yes, and they both go all out toward the beast. Now just to mix things up, the skeletons are using spears, and they throw them at the two young fighters. Mana gets pretty worried about that, so she and her friend do what they can to dodge the attacks. Takamichi asks if she's okay, and she says she is. Now there are less than 60 seconds left until Yuri's curse activates. Now the protagonist decides to use all his power. He needs to clear a path fast. With that, several creatures are destroyed. He looks at them with determination. Suddenly he notices an item dropped, the dead's rancor. With a smile, the protagonist says it's a huge joke for something that useless to even exist. No one in their right mind would equip that. But since Takamichi doesn't have much sense, he decides to equip it as a ring. The object shines on his finger, but the ring's effect will be converted, and he'll get a full heal every 5 seconds. Now he doesn't need to worry about defending against attacks anymore. The skeletons keep getting destroyed, and the protagonist manages to reach the boss, ready to wipe out its kind. His eyes and his sword shine with excitement. He's going to show it Fas and Amos' special attack. It's a 7-hit fury, and with each hit, his power increases. If one of the hits gets interrupted, the skill fails, so it's really hard to find chances to use it. The purifier starts to panic about the situation, and all of a sudden Takamichi-san feels a huge pain. Scared, Yuri calls out his name. The boy watches her closely. His body starts to harden and his clothes begin to tear. He swings his sword with everything he's got at the monster. Now he'll get a full heal, always after 5 seconds. At that moment, the creature realizes it doesn't stand a chance. They both start fighting intensely. Fast, the boy charges straight at it. The creature doesn't fall behind either, even if it's mostly just defending. Suddenly, it's Takamishi's end again. Now he's going to go through the inversion again, thanks to the ring he's wearing. The battle intensifies, and the monster realizes this will be its end. For his final attack, the warrior decides to use his strongest strike. With a grim expression, he gets ready to play his last card. And a huge, powerful explosion floods the whole place. A huge explosion of light happens, making the monster scream as it shatters. Shiramachi starts to fall, completely unconscious. We see her body is about to hit the ground, but luckily for the girl, the protag shows up and catches her in his arms, and the young woman wakes up startled. Smiling, Yoshito feels relieved, seeing she isn't hurt, while the tough girl thanks him for saving her. Mana shows up and says it's nice that they're getting along, but they need to remember the curse. The girl hands her friend a potion vial, saying that if she uses it, she'll be fine. Surprised, the blonde girl comments that the creature waited for the holy water's effect to wear off. Suddenly, red screens start popping up, catching our boy's attention. He gets scared but remembers that's the ring's effect and wonders how long the object is going to last. We find out that the ring, when equipped, gives a death effect every 5 seconds. Catching Yoshito off guard, the redstone cracks, releasing a purple mist in his thoughts. The guy prays that it won't explode in his hand, and deciding not to push his luck, he starts trying to pull the ring off his finger, but it won't come off. A strong light starts radiating from the redstone, making our boy break out in a cold sweat. But then, out of nowhere, a message appears saying that the skill rankets of the bodies has reached its max, and that the ring of bodies will be transformed into a putrid ring. The blonde girl asks what happened. Not knowing either, the protag says something weird happened with the item he picked up, but since it doesn't seem to have any effect, he's going to take the ring off his finger. Turning to the girls, Yoshito asks what the next step is. Thinking it over, Mana says Yuri got a huge scare, so it'd be better to just collect the magic stones and head back. Feeling guilty, the black-haired girl apologizes, but her friend tells her to relax. Determined, Shiramachi says she'll do her best to at least collect the magic stones, and a few minutes later we see she's really keeping her promise. But after a few hours, the pair is already exhausted, while she doesn't stop working. We find out Persephone's conquest kept going without any major issues, and because of the huge number of challengers, the upper floors were cleared, so in a week it was reported that the boss room had been found on the 30th floor. We're taken to Tokyo's Challenger Management Department, where the protagonist is alone having coffee. Suddenly, a conversation catches his attention. A guy asks the other if he's heard about the boss room. That's sealed, not letting any challenger enter. Someone else shows up and apologizes to Yoshito for the wait. It's the guy's two allies, excited. Hakia asks if today they're going to go check out the boss room. The protagonist then asks if she already knows how to get in. Smiling, the girl says someone she knows found a clue on the last floor, leaving our boy with his mouth hanging open. Speaking quietly, the blonde challenger says the clue is a short phrase that says, as proof of many deaths, the proof of decay rises. Intrigued, the guy asks what the hell that's supposed to mean. Even more confused, the pink-eyed girl says she has no idea. Trying to bring a little hope, Yuri says she also got some information, then reveals that apparently, a lot of people who were in the tower received a ring with a death effect. Mana asks if Takamichi still has his apple. As the protagonist opens his inventory, the brunette challenger says she thinks you can only drop one ring per person. That's why some people think the item might be the key. Thinking, our boy says that even after killing a bunch of small fry fish, he couldn't get another ring to drop, then remembering the phrase his ally mentioned. The black-haired girl then says that apparently, even after equipping the ring, the boss room doesn't open. Having put it all together, Yoshito starts walking, saying, without turning around, that they need to go to Persephone, since probably only his ring will be able to open the boss room, because it's a magic key. After a few minutes, the trio quickly reaches the tower's 30th floor. In his head, our boy wonders what he'll do if he's wrong, since the last thing he wants is to look like an idiot in front of the girls. Curious, Yuri decides to just ask already why the protagonist thinks the ring will open the door. Explaining, the guy says that after the ring's death effect hit its limit, the object turned into another item, shouting. The brunette challenger asks what he means. He activated the accessory's death effect, then remembering the guy has the infinite resurrection skill, even though he only used reversal. Yoshito says the most important thing is that the ring doesn't have any effect anymore after it transformed, which is pretty suspicious, since there's no obvious reason for that to have happened, and that's where the clue comes in. Because to him, the phrase means you were supposed to trigger the death effect a bunch of times, until the ring turned rotten. The two girls get excited by the explanation. Being modest, the protagonist says he figured all that out by accident, while thinking, at the same time as he gets embarrassed, that he talked too much, but now all he can do is count on the ring in his hand and pray he doesn't become a joke. Before our boy tries to open the door with the ring, Mana tries to open it by force. After a few minutes of trying, she says it really is impossible, so now it's time for Takamichi to do his part. Walking up to the door, the protagonist tries to have faith in his own prediction, and, holding out the hand with the ring, orders the door to open. But nothing happens, and an awkward silence fills the space. Wanting to die, the guy thinks he really was wrong, while his allies say maybe the process takes a little while. Suddenly, the ring's blue stone starts to glow. Just like the boss room door, like magic, the passage opens, leaving the protagonist more than relieved. In his head, he realizes he was so focused on opening the door that he ended up forgetting that. Now he'll have to fight the boss, a boss that's on the 30th floor, which means it has to be stronger than what they beat in the Hermes Tower. Worried, Yoshito turns around and says that they need to regroup, but showing it won't be that simple. The monster sticks its hand out, then grabs our boy, and he's just dragged into the room, leaving the girls freaking out. Inside, the guy gets tossed up into the air but manages to land on the ground without totally wrecking himself. While he yells and breaks out in a cold sweat, shouting, he tells his allies not to come in there. Suddenly, the door closes and a circle of red light appears. Standing up, Takamichi figures that once you go in, you're not allowed to leave. We see that in front of him, a big spiral of blue light releases a thick fog, until a monstrous foot starts coming out of the portal, and after a few, the boss stands in front of the trio, who stare it down, steady, ready to fight the monster, with a corpse-like face and a red eye, slams its staff into the ground, making a huge burst of light go off, and after looking deep into the challenger's souls, it lets out a terrifying roar, kicking up a gale with his sword in hand. Yoshito says that apparently, he has no choice except to take responsibility for having opened the door. The elder bone priest keeps staring at the trio, then says something in another language. Suddenly, the creature makes blue flames surround the challengers. To make it worse, skeletons start coming out of the flames, gathering like an army ready to help their master. Thinking, our boy says that, like this, they'll be at a huge disadvantage if he doesn't end it all fast. Without hesitating, Yoshito charges the elder, determined to ignore the soldiers, since what matters is killing the main one. Our boy manages to land a hit, but to his surprise his sword only hits the monster's shield, which then causes an explosion that blasts him away. Nervous, the protag figures his opponent has perfect defense. Suddenly, one of the skeletons appears behind him, ready to attack, and because he's focused on the enemy in front, he ends up taking a slash that makes him spit strawberry juice out of his mouth, about to get hit with a double attack. Our boy wonders how that's even possible. A message pops up, warning that he died, and that as a penalty, a -40 defense debuff will be applied, but thanks to the inversion skill, the penalty is turned into +40. Back from the dead, Takamichi swings at the skeleton, which manages to block using all his strength to push through. The protag says that even if they're just a bunch of bones, the weight of their attacks and the creature's speed are on a totally different level from the ones on the floors below. We see the protag is about to get beaten again, because he's fighting several skeletons, not just one, showing they're smart too. The monsters grab the guy's arms, completely pinning him down right after the bone priest decides to come closer, making Yoshito realize he's seriously screwed. Suddenly something catches the boss's attention, and it turns to look. Thinking, our boy wonders what's going on, and quickly finds out it's Yuri and Mana. With her weapon, the dark-haired challenger unleashes her power, which heads straight for the skeleton army, causing a huge water spout. Happy, the girl yells that they did it, But quickly the look on her face changes, because the skeletons are still standing, soaked but standing. Sakia tries to stop the pile of bones from getting closer. Surrounded, the girls wonder what to do. Shouting, the protag orders the skeletons holding him to get out of his way, showing he's extremely worried about his allies. Unlucky for him, the elder isn't really in the mood to let him escape, and slamming its staff into the ground, leaves Takamichi without one of his arms. In excruciating pain, the protag starts screaming, all while staring at the boss, which looks like it's having fun. The skeletons keep holding the guy so their master can keep doing what it was doing. Our boy screams again, and now, without one arm and without one leg, begs the creature to stop. But unfortunately, his pleas aren't heard. All we see is strawberry juice flying everywhere, until the screams stop thrown on the ground. In a puddle of his own fluids, the protag still alive looks at the elder, then says he just picked up a staff trauma. Yoshito dies for the second time, leaving the boss over the moon. After some time, the guy opens his eyes and, remembering what he saw last, starts sweating from sheer terror. To make things worse, his mind starts replaying the moments when he was attacked, and even though his arms are back where they belong now, our boy can't stop shaking while he hides his face with both hands, then letting out a terrifying scream until he runs out of breath and falls forward. Staring at the screen, the young guy thinks that if he doesn't go back, no one will be able to save Yuri and Mana, so he needs to hurry up and revive to defeat the Bone Priest. Still panicking, the main guy says he doesn't have time to fall apart, and says he knows exactly what he has to do. The problem is he can't stop shaking, about to head back into the fight. Takamichi figures that, no matter what, it's better to change where he respawns. With the process finished, he comes back behind the boss. When the boy shows up, the two girls are surprised. Our boy decides to get the creature's attention, but when he remembers those red eyes, his hand starts shaking nonstop again, standing face to face with the skeleton army. The main guy puts a hand to his face and says it's so pathetic that he can't even move, but when he sees the worst is about to happen to his allies, a fury takes over his body. While the boss stares him down, suddenly an explosion goes off right in the red circle that was sealing the door, catching our boy completely off guard. Turning around, he sees a man with a huge sword coming out of the hole, heading toward the priest. The stranger says he heard nobody could open the door, so he used force, but he didn't expect there were already people inside. After the dust settles, the man looks at the situation around him until he sees the main guy crying in terror, scratching his neck. He says that apparently the trio isn't having their best day. Suddenly, two skeletons rush toward Takamichi, who gets saved by the sword of the guy who just arrived. Finishing off the creatures, he says he'll give the boy a hand, so he should just relax, since he's standing before the king of dominators, Kogura Okiyomi, the one who won't let anyone there die. Those words echo through our boy's mind. We find out that Dominator King is a title given to those who conquered magic towers with over 100 floors. That's why there are very few challengers at that level in Japan. Spinning his sword, the man says they should leave the talk for later, since it's time to dominate that place with flames. Fire bursts out everywhere, along with a huge tornado that surrounds the pair. The skeletons start screaming as they feel the fire catch on their bones, mouth hanging open. Yoshito says that's incredible. Another explosion happens, putting the priest in a bad spot. Using its power, the creature leaps into the air, but Kogura stops it from escaping to protect itself. The boss activates its shield, while the Dominator delivers a deadly strike, causing a clash of powers. We quickly find out the priest got the worst of it, before another blast of flames happens. Our boy raises his arms to his face to shield himself from the gusts, while the man watches the situation completely calmly. Suddenly, the creature appears behind him, ready to attack, but it gets launched back with just one punch. With the boss thrown to the ground, the Dominator turns to look at the main guy, and says the finishing blow is his. Confused, Takamichi just stares blankly. Kogura then says he doesn't know what the boy went through in there, but he looks awful, so he should take the chance and settle things once and for all, so he doesn't carry that feeling with him when he leaves. Still breaking out in cold sweat, our boy grips his sword tightly, then thanks him. The boss's eyes go wide and it decides to attack one more time so it won't die, but the main guy is faster, and swinging his blade, says that thanks to him, he feels like fighting again. The Dominator watches the scene with a proud look, and then asks if doing that was enough to chase the fear away. Turning around, our boy says yes, putting a hand on the boy's shoulder. Okiyomi says that he can finally congratulate the Dominator of the Tower of Persephone. Nervous, Yoshito asks the man to wait. After all, he only finished off the boss, so the one who should get the credit isn't him. Kindly, the Dominator says the method doesn't matter, because the reward goes to the one who defeated the boss. The main guy says that in that case, he'll hand everything over to the man, but he says he won't accept it, then saying that the boy should use the reward to get stronger. Smiling, Kogura watches our boy happy with his allies. He then says he has way too much money, and since he also has your loyal squire, which is your weapon, there's no reason to take the younger one's reward. The trio watches the man, surprised, and he says that if the kid wants to thank him, he should show the unique weapon he just got, because he's dying to see what it is. Even kind of nervous, the protagonist agrees, while also complaining about the fact the unique weapon is a staff. After clicking the item, it appears glowing in front of everyone. Shocked, Yoshito's eyes go wide when he realizes he now has the Arcanum Aqua Happy. The Dominator says that's a magic staff and asks if the kid is good with magic. Holding the weapon, our boy says that actually no, so the staff should stay with Yuri, who's really good with spells. Surprised, the girl can't say anything. The protagonist asks what's wrong, explaining. The challenger says she doesn't deserve to keep the item. Leaving our boy really confused, Shiramachi then says she talked with Yuri about how they couldn't help with anything. Not just that time, but in the fight against the previous boss too, which made them nothing but a burden to the kid. So both of them think forming the team wasn't a very good decision. Disagreeing, Takamichi says that time didn't count because if it weren't for Kogura, he wouldn't have been able to protect them. Hearing that makes Sakia smile. Then the girl asks if he still hasn't realized that they've turned into things that need protecting. Breaking out in a cold sweat, the protagonist says that's not what he meant. but it seems like it's too late, since the blonde girl says that's exactly why the two of them are going to get stronger. Confused, our boy asks what that's supposed to mean. Yuri then says the two of them are going to take on towers like that one by themselves. Adding on, Mana says that after they get stronger, they'll definitely come back to the team. Determined, the dark-haired challenger says that's why the kid should keep the staff. But he tosses the item to her and says that actually if they're going to clear towers, that's even more reason for her to keep the weapon, since anyone who wants to get stronger should use everything they've got on hand. Even wanting to refuse, Shiramachi gives up arguing. Suddenly a message appears, saying the boss of Persephone's tower has been defeated, and the tower will disappear in 10 seconds, before being teleported. The protagonist says he'll meet up with the pair later, somewhere else. Kagura says that was a pretty grown-up goodbye. Sitting down, Yoshito says it's not really like that because he's really sad about the situation. The man walks up and calls the kid by name, which catches him off guard, explaining the challenger says he heard the girls call him that, then asks why the kid doesn't come with him, since he's got some free time now. Turning around, the protagonist asks if the man needs him to do something. While stretching, he says that actually he got called in by the head of the Tokyo department, but normally, he stays in the central region, which means if they called him out there, the job's gonna be pretty complicated. So he stopped by Persephone to kill time before the meeting, but ended up running into the kid in there. Walking along, Takamichi asks why the man is so interested in someone like him, since he hasn't even seen his infinite resurrection ability, so there's no reason for that kind of interest. Turning, Okiyomi says he heard from Fuyune that the kid was a promising dominator from the new generation. That info catches the protagonist off guard. Shocked, he asks if the boss really said that, and confirming it. The man says he was surprised to see him inside the boss room because he thought he was just some regular person. Embarrassed, our boy says he's a regular guy, since he couldn't do anything against the priest. Giving him a push, the dominator says in that case, he just needs to try harder next time. Then adds that even after all that, there's still plenty of time before the meeting, so he and Yoshito should go do some shopping to relax, and it'll be paid for by him of course, since first of all, the kid needs to learn how to spend smart thinking. Our boy says he's going to learn financial literacy from one of the few king dominators in Japan, which gets him super excited. A few hours of shopping later, Takamichi and Kogura show up with their new look. In front of the department head, without showing much reaction, the woman asks who they are. Furious, the protagonist tells her not to ask what she already knows. Confused, the young woman says they're dressed in a weird way. Looking at our boy, the dominator, he says that, even being someone with plenty of money and success, none of that matters if it doesn't come with good fashion sense. Then the girl says that even if that's true, those clothes are still ridiculous. Shouting, Yoshito says she doesn't seem interested in fashion, and that she probably only wears baggy clothes when she's home alone. After staying silent for a few seconds, the woman stands up. Then she shows a photo of herself where the caption says the fashion trend the department chief has adopted is now among the 7 most popular. On his knees, our boy begs for forgiveness, while the man laughs. Getting straight to the point, Kagura asks Fuyune why she called him. Then the young woman says there's only one reason she did that, which is that Tokyo's Challenger department is about to carry out a large-scale operation. Intrigued, the protagonist asks what kind of operation, explaining. The department chief says the operation will be carried out at the biggest magic lot in Kanto, with the goal of taking the Tower of Zeus. Then the man says he was already expecting that, because lately the number of deaths in the conquest of the higher floors just keeps going up, and the department can't ignore the situation anymore. The woman says the remaining rewards on Zeus's upper floors will be distributed to everyone involved in the operation, from the front line to the support units, and on top of that, volunteers will be assigned according to their abilities. Since the danger level of the magic tower can't be compared to normal towers, and even with the department leading it, a high number of deaths is still expected. That's why she wants the dominator on the front line, to reduce casualties. After all, he's the one who conquered Hephaestus's great magic tower in the central region. Lowering his head, Kogura says that if his presence will save lives, he'll lend all his power. Thinking, Yoshito concludes he's just extra there. All of a sudden, the dominator says he has one condition, because he'd like to take the boy with him to the front line too. Fuyune says that's fine, leaving the protagonist completely terrified. Smiling, the man says he's counting on him. While our boy yells, "What do you mean? We're taken to Proteus's magic tower." Stretching out his arm, Okiyomi asks the protagonist if he's ready to level up. Moments before that happens, we find out the department chief said the plan to conquer Zeus still was in progress, so the duo should spend the time doing whatever they want. Without hesitating, the dominator asks if there's any magic tower in the area that's good for leveling up, because before taking Takamichi to the front line, he wants to train him as much as he can. Our boy asks if he has any choice, but the man says no. Confused, he asks why the dominator wants to take him along. Then Kagura says he just wants the boy to get stronger. After all, there's no one more suitable than him. The explanation doesn't help the protagonist at all. Then Fuyune says that if it's for leveling up, she recommends Proteus's magic tower, because even without any special trait, it has high-level monsters, plus a big mine of magic stones, making it a pretty popular place among adventurers. The dominator says that in that case, that's where they're going, then turning around to leave, while saying that he and the young man should take the chance to kill the boss too. Inside the tower, we see the duo watching an armored soldier, next to Yoshito. Okiyomi says he wants to see how far the young man can get on his own. Taking a deep breath before answering, our boy gets ready to attack, and rushing in, says he'll try. The soldier quickly swings, grazing the challenger's cheek. Our boy ducks to counterattack, making the enemy step back before crashing hard to the ground. But recovering immediately, the creature raises its sword again, looking up while smiling. Takamichi says that swing was way too wide. The soldier ends up dropping to his knees, making the boy feel relieved. But suddenly, Kogura shouts, warning that it's not over yet. When the protagonist turns to look behind him, he realizes his opponent threw the sword, and now it's coming straight at him. In his thoughts, the Dominator reveals he'd like to help, but before they fight side by side, he needs to see with his own eyes what the young man is capable of. Seeing the blow was fatal, the man apologizes to himself. Our boy gets thrown back and falls with the sword still lodged in his body. With eyes showing no sign of life, the soldier approaches to pick up his weapon, but the main guy comes back to life and cuts the guy's arm off, warning him that last attack actually hurt. So now, he's gonna put an end to this. Watching it all from the sidelines, Okiyomi says that, just like he thought, the kid is immortal, and the only one who can keep up with him on the mission. After subduing his opponent, the main guy says that now that he's lost his weapon, he can't beat him anymore. But to his surprise, the soldier makes another sword appear like it's magic, and lands another fatal blow. Coming back to life again, Yoshito says this is already the second time the creature has hit his heart, and jumping back into the fight without any fear, says he's not gonna let that slide. The two of them clash swords until the main guy has to back off so he doesn't get hit. In midair, he manages to block every strike from the armored monster, but in his head, he's frustrated he can't land a single decisive hit. Suddenly a flash appears in the distance, and it blasts the boy backward with full force. Because he's quick, Takamichi manages to land on the ground without much trouble, but when he looks ahead, he realizes more enemies have shown up. All of a sudden swords fly toward the boy's head, but luckily, they end up hitting the ground. The creatures start closing in, smiling. Our boy says this has gotta be a joke, referring to the fact that 4 soldiers have surrounded him with his sword. He starts blocking the opponent's strikes, but one pushes in harder, almost hitting him, so to defend himself, Yoshito attacks, forcing the enemies to back off. After that, he tries to do 1,000 things at once, so he won't die again. Thinking the main guy concludes the situation is bad, and if things keep going like that, the ending will be the same as the other times. Suddenly, Kogura comes up, then says it's time to stop just watching. With a single strike, the Dominator sends the soldiers flying, making them slam hard into the stone wall. Looking at the main guy, the man says his power really is impressive, but now it's his turn to show his true strength. Without hesitating, the Dominator activates his ability, before burning the soldiers with the flames of his sword. A little farther away, our boy watches it all with his mouth hanging open. After finishing his attack, Okiyomi calls out to his new friend, and says he was planning to show off a bit more, but the enemy's end is up evaporating in a single hit. Shocked, the main guy says that was enough to understand just how strong he is. Realizing he scared the kid, the Dominator says that's not what he meant, since he only wanted to show off while fighting desperately for his life like him. Shouting, Yoshito says that actually, he wasn't fighting desperately because he wanted to. Putting his hands in his pockets, the man says that either way, there'll be other chances. Exhausted, the main guy asks what the next step is. The Dominator then says that according to Fuyune, there's a big magic stone mine up ahead, and since magic stones are crystallized mana, monsters tend to like them, because they usually absorb the items to get stronger. So the mine area usually has powerful monsters. Turning around, he asks if the boy understood what they need to do. Confirming it, the main guy says they have to find the monsters and wipe them all out. Holding out his fist for a fist bump, Kogura says that in that case it's time to go. We're taken to another place packed with magic stones, where what look like other adventurers mine with pickaxes, while young women rest sitting down, but the group doesn't seem to notice that a monstrous creature is watching them. Sometime later, the Dominator and Takamichi finally reach the 25th floor, the magic stone mining area. Noticing how amazed the boy is by the place, the man asks if it's the first time he's seen an area like that. Looking from side to side like crazy, our boy says yes. Then remembering that the last time he traded magic stones he made so much money he was able to pay off his debts, but now if they managed to trade all the magic stones from that mine, they could end up filthy rich. Excited, he says, it's time to start mining. The Dominator apologizes for ruining the kid's plans and says that if you could get rich off that, there'd be way more explorers. Thinking it over, our boy says that yeah, there really aren't that many people there, explaining. The man reveals that if there are lots of magic stones embedded in one place, their power ends up dropping, since when they form they compete for the magic around them. That's why the ones in that area are mixed with impurities, which means they're not worth much at all. Even so, a lot of people still mine there, which made the management department protect the environment, making the place really safe for anyone who wants to go in. A bit further ahead, a girl celebrates with her friends after finding a big stone. Thinking to himself, the main guy says the trio looks like they're having fun. The scene makes him remember his old team, since after he split up with the girls he ended up feeling kind of lonely, showing that's not really the case. Kogura shows up again and wraps an arm around the guy's neck, then asks if he's into one of the girls. Since he won't stop staring at them, in his head our boy says the guy is super annoying, and slipping out of the hold, he says out loud that he's not into anyone. The tamer then says the kid is really a pain. Then right after that, he asks which of the girls who used to travel with him the guy liked. Somewhere else, Yuri seems to sense something getting no answer. The man says both of them were really beautiful, and that he knows the main guy likes one of them, or maybe Fuyune. Our boy has no idea how to get out of that awkward situation. Far from there, the tan challenger says something's going on, while her friend tells her to focus on the fight. Nervous, Takamichi asks the tamer to stop asking stupid stuff. After all, they came there to train, not to talk romance. The man points a finger at the guy and calling him a brat, orders him to shut up. One of the girls who was mining tells her friends they should try pushing a bit further, and after finding an area with huge rocks they decide to start working right away. But when she swings the pickaxe, the short-haired girl hurts her hand and says those rocks are way harder than the others. Then asking what could be the reason for that, to the trio's bad luck, a monster opens its eyes, immediately catching the protagonist's attention. Furious, the creature starts to rise, leaving the girls wide-eyed with its size and its shape. Without hesitating, the beast throws its first attack using arms that came out of the top of its head, while it sends magic rocks flying everywhere. Unfortunately, the trio of girls is right in the line of fire of those sharp chunks. to the point they can only put their hands over their heads and wait for the worst. Luckily, Yashito jumps in front at just the right moment, and with his sword manages to knock the rocks away. Turning around, he asks if the miners are okay, and says they can run now. Relieved, the girls thank him alone with the creature. Our boy says he tried to be nice, but as expected, his plans never work out the way he wants, falling to the ground with magic rocks stuck in his body. The main guy says dying while saving someone isn't that bad, but someday, he'd like to be like Okiyomi, who can save people and still look cool doing it. Furious, the stone creature stretches out its foot to finish the job, thinking about what he wants after he dies. Takemichi reflects on what he'll do after conquering the magic towers, and making tons of money, enough that he won't have to worry about it anymore. Quickly concluding that, actually he still doesn't have an answer to that, but he's sure that, after seeing how the Tamer King saved him and saved his team and Persephone, all he wants is to become an adventurer who saves others in incredible ways. Reviving for the 50th time using his skill. Our boy says that to reach the man's level, he's still missing a lot of skill and experience, so he needs to keep pushing his training. Charging at the monster, the main guy gets its attention, and then asks if the creature wouldn't like to die with him. Determined, he throws his first strike, but to his frustration, the enemy's shell is really tough, which means cutting it won't be easy at all. Turning around, the guy asks where Kagura went. We see he's at the mine entrance, helping evacuate the miners. A young man comes up and says that as a guard he can't just run away. The tamer then says he knows dealing with that monster is his responsibility and the others too, but that day nobody will need to worry, because his partner will handle it. Hearing that, Yoshido's eyes go wide. Suddenly the monster launches more sharp magic rocks, forcing the main guy to swing his sword over and over. Worried, he decides to start running so he won't get hit, but stops when he hears Okiyomi shouting his name. Smiling, the man asks if he has any intelligence. Shouting, our boy asks if he's messing with him at a time like this. Laughing, the tamer says he's talking about the intelligence stat. Well, if he's got a good amount of that specific stat, he should try to pay closer attention to figure out the secret behind the monster's toughness, which should show up pretty soon. Saying goodbye, the man says he'll leave things to him. Focused, the protagonist says he ended up with a pretty irresponsible friend. We find out that intelligence is a stat that scales with magic, and everything has magical power. So as that stat goes up, the number of powerful spells also goes up. In his head, the boy says that thanks to his skill, his intelligence went up, but not enough for him to use magic. But to his surprise, when he looks at the panel, he finds out that he actually can. Confused, our boy wonders how that's possible. Then he remembers that when he died earlier, his intelligence went up, which means his agonizing death had some kind of benefit. Without hesitating, he activates his magic sense, which reveals a flow of magic around the creature's body, since he still can't control his new skill very well. Yoshido figures he needs to focus more. All of a sudden, he realizes the monster is protecting its own body with magic, and that's why it has such a hard shell. The creature stares at the protagonist, waiting for a move. Out of nowhere, 3 circles of light appear above its head. Thinking again, the boy wonders if the stone's magical power is being gathered. Then he concludes that if that's really it, he's screwed. The monster fires off a blast of light, sending our boy flying backward with everything. On the ground, he says that even if he can see the magic shell, it's useless if he can't beat the creature. But then, when he focuses again, he notices the shape of the shell became unstable when it came into contact with the magic around it, which means there really is an opening. Determined, Takemichi charges in again, saying he's going to rip his opponent out of the shell to greet it with a deadly attack, using a bit more of his new skill. The protagonist figures that since the enemy's defensive shell became temporarily unstable, all he has to do is hit it with enough magic to break the shield. But first he'll need to saturate the area with magic by destroying the magic stones. The monster attacks again, launching a rain of stones toward the boy. Running, our boy manages to get out unscathed, but then he runs into more stones coming from another direction. The attack forces him to jump, using the wall as support, close enough to the embedded stones. He starts slashing with his sword, breaking the items into little pieces. Turning around, the protagonist thinks that should be enough. But, to his surprise, the monster isn't in the same place anymore. The creature drops hard right behind the boy, who activates his magic manipulation skill again, while thousands of stones fly toward him. Thinking it over, Takemichi says that attribute only has the effect of gathering magic around him, but not producing magic or letting him use it. Still, to break his opponent's defensive shell, that'll work just fine. Moving at the speed of light, the protagonist lands a deadly strike on the creature, but when he sees the shield only cracked a tiny bit, he realizes his attack still isn't strong enough, so he'll have to use his trump card. Getting ready, our boy says it's time to bloom. Then he activates his unique skill, called Chain Burst Furious. The monster attacks using the only thing it knows how to do. While defending himself, the boy thinks he'll first chain the 7 strikes, because with each one, his attack gets stronger. Then at the end, he'll add magic and unleash all his strength. Switching it up, the creature hurls huge stones toward the protagonist, who crouches down to block. Then he says he's not in a hurry, because the more magic he builds up, the more he'll be able to send back at his opponent. When it sees the young man coming at it, the monster uses its magic portals again, but unlucky for it, Yoshido is faster than ever, getting really close. He says that this time the monster won't be able to stop his attack. We find out that because of the massive surge of magic, the final attack underwent a transformation. Watching everything after coming back, Kagura says the young man went beyond his expectations, shouting. The protagonist says it's time to destroy the monster's core, along with its shell. A huge explosion of blue petals and stones happens, and finally, the creature's shield breaks, making it crack in half, causing, this time, an explosion of fire that sends our boy flying far away until his back slams into the ground hard. When he opens his eyes again, he's face to face with the tamer smiling, which makes him smile too, before raising his hand, giving a thumbs up along with his new partner. As they leave, Takemichi asks if the other adventurers are okay, and the man says yes, A little further ahead, they find the girls. Our boy waves to the trio while Okiomi says that matter is settled. But then, all of a sudden, another explosion happens. Catching everyone off guard, a monstrous mouth comes up to the protagonist and crushes him without mercy, right after Kogura screams the boy's name in desperation. While the girls shrink back, terrified, quickly, the protagonist shows up after reviving. Still freaked out, he asks what the hell size is that? Then realizing he'll have to fight the Steel Annihilator, thinking about how the monster showed up. The boy concludes it's an anomaly, one of those really rare things to happen. Even nervous, he grips his sword. Suddenly the steel serpent attacks, but it's blocked by the Dominator's sword. Smiling, he says the monster is good, so he's going to start fighting seriously, so he doesn't end up getting eaten too. Activating his skill, Okiomi gets ready to control the area. Through a scorching heat, flames wrap around the Steel Annihilator's body. Shielding his eyes, Yoshito tries not to miss a single detail, but something ends up catching his attention. It's the fact that the Dominator's flames have no effect at all, as the monster closes in. Kogura says that apparently the creature's shell has a powerful resistance to fire, which means now all he has left is brute force. Without any fear, the man charges at the Annihilator, which opens its mouth to devour him. But unlucky for him, the Annihilator is faster and manages to land more than one hit in a row. When it reaches a certain point, he realizes the monster screamed and backing off tells it not to think it can nibble on him that easily. Out of nowhere, a compartment opens in the enemy's body, which leaves the Dominator confused. But from inside the compartment, a sharp claw comes out and heads straight for him. We see it wasn't just one claw that appeared. Worried, Yomi says he didn't expect his opponent to have a weapon like that up its sleeve. Determined, the creature fires all its claws at once. Still in midair, the man tries to get away. The protagonist jumps back into the fight and tries to land a strike, but the Dominator yells his name, because one of the claws is heading toward the boy. Our boy can't do anything and ends up getting hit dead on. Reviving, he says that hurts like hell, but thanks to his skill, he managed to get really close to the enemy. With his power active, he tells it to say goodbye to its eye, before driving the sword right into the monster's iris, and it starts thrashing, throwing him away. The boy starts falling in free fall, but before he hits the ground, he's saved by Kogura. Apologizing, the man says the young guy died because of him. Sweating, the protagonist says he doesn't need to worry about that, because the most important thing right now is to defeat the Steel Annihilator. Still thrashing, the monster starts destroying the cave. Then right after, once again, charging at the pair a little further ahead. Green rays wrap around the creature's body after it slams into a shield, protecting himself. Yoshito finally finds out what happens when a monster tries to push into a safe area. After the impact, the Annihilator quickly pulls itself together and faces the protagonist again, who wonders what it's planning. Suddenly, the huge serpent starts going underground. Confused, the protagonist asks if it's trying to go to the floors below, even though it's common knowledge that stronger monsters stay on the upper floors. Turning around, the boy says that if the creature attacks the low-level adventurers down there who aren't prepared, a tragedy will happen. Kogura agrees and says that, in fact, if they let the Annihilator get out of there, a lot of people will die. Yoshito quickly moves up to the hole the monster left, then states that the creature really can move between floors. The Dominator then says that normally, each floor has entrances to safe zones, so monsters can't reach other floors, but there are rare exceptions where the beasts are so powerful they end up being able to move using a certain method, which means the Annihilator is one of the exceptions. Explaining, Okiomi says those beings are put by the department into a special category, to be exterminated properly. Surprised, the protagonist asks, what do you mean a special category? The man then says these monsters are called errors. The info seems to shock our boy. Looking at the huge crater, the Dominator says information about the errors is only shared among adventurers, high-level ones, chosen by the department, so it's better for them to head back, and after reporting the current situation, with not much they can do, the protag just agrees. Both of them get ready to leave, but then all of a sudden someone screams. It's one of the girls from earlier, saying that just a moment ago the guy had died. Thinking fast, our boy remembers he ended up letting the trio see his ability. Nervous, he tries to come up with an explanation and says that actually that was just an illusion, so he didn't really die. Concluding right after that, it's better to tell a lie than traumatize everyone. One of the girls walks up and says that no matter how she looks at it, that stuff on the floor still looks like real strawberry juice. Breaking out in a cold sweat, the protag says his illusion is just like that, quickly convincing the trio. Then the girls let out a loud, clear thank you so much for saving us. The scene catches the guy off guard, so he says that he's happy they're all okay, making the girls fall for him even more. Taking the initiative, the short-haired girl asks if he could give her his phone number. Far away, Yuri says she can feel something dangerous happening, while Mana yells that they need to keep going. Ruining the moment, Kogura says everyone already evacuated and it's just them there. The protag says it's fine and that he's coming. Looking at the girl, he says it's time to go. After all, he's sure she doesn't want to get caught by the steel snake again. Walking up, the guy apologizes to the tamer for the delay. The other guy says it's fine, then says he really crushed it and totally deserves a reward. Our boy says he didn't do it for a reward, leaving the man intrigued, smiling. The man says that either way, now it's time to head back to base through the teleport portal, which lets a person connect to another point inside the same magic tower. We find out there's a portal every 5 floors and they're usually placed in safe areas, so as soon as someone reaches a floor with a portal it gets activated for use, just in case. Takamichi says they're lucky to be on a floor with a portal, unlike the other adventurers, who if they get attacked by the snake, won't be able to escape. Kagura agrees and says that's exactly why they need to go back to the management department, so they can coordinate with Fuyune and the others and eliminate the anomaly. Sometime later we see the department head thanking them for the report, then revealing that several people were injured and killed on the lower floors of the tower, which made the association label the Steel Annihilator as top priority among the errors. so an immediate response will be made and all exploration has been suspended. Standing up, Fuyune finishes by saying she'll personally defeat the creature. The tamer agrees. After all, he and the guy weren't able to solve the situation. Then asks the woman to send a group that he'll be part of. Not being mentioned, our boy stares at the man picking up her weapon. The department head says the man doesn't need to worry. Yoshito looks really surprised at the scene. Then the woman warns, holding a katana bigger than she is, that this time she's going in person. After some time, they arrive back at Proteus's magic tower and run into the chaos the 8th floor has become. Fuyune shows up and says that after they faced the steel annihilator on the 25th floor, it went down and attacked everyone around, but it's still possible to detect tremors on that floor right now, which means the creature is nearby, determined. The woman says she won't let it get away. Our boy asks if she isn't worried the snake will attack the people who went ahead, and whether the adventurers who did the recon weren't killed. Shaking her head, the department head says the ones sent to the tower belonged to a unit specialized in dealing with errors. Excited, Kogura says it was about time this happened, then adds that the Special Operations Unit, under the command of the Tokyo Adventurers Department Head, known as the Ice Flower Team, has just arrived. After hearing all the names, the protag says it's hard to even pronounce. Walking up, a guy says the recon is finished, and as expected, the tremors keep happening on that floor, which means the target is somewhere inside the walls. Turning around, the young man says the names of our favorite duo. Confused, the protag asks what's up. To his surprise, the guy kneels and thanks the two of them for their cooperation, then says the threat is first class, even equivalent to a magic tower boss. So if they can fight alongside the duo, they can also minimize the losses. Yoshito asks, wait, what do you mean losses? And what the guy could possibly be talking about. Stepping in, Kogura says the two of them are there, so yeah, the losses. Cutting the man off, the protagonist says he won't let anyone die. Smiling, the department guy says it's pretty reassuring to hear that. All of a sudden, a tremor hits, knocking everyone off their feet. Freaked out, our boy knows exactly what's going on, so does Fuyune, who yells saying that the shaking is coming from underneath them. The steel annihilator bursts out of the ground, already with its mouth open. Shouting, the team leader orders everyone to get ready for combat. Quickly, the adventurers rush the snake, which realizes it's about to be attacked mid-air, and releases its claws to protect itself, showing they've got skills. Two guys manage to dodge the attack, but one of them looks to the side and realizes he's about to get hit. Under him, we see a pair of adventurers attacking together. Watching from afar, the Dominator says coordinated moves are one of the Ice Flower team's special traits and that they've totally got what it takes to take down stuff at boss level. The problem is that the Annihilator seems to be on a completely different level, which means the team won't be able to hold out for long without turning around. The man asks if Yoshito is ready, because it's time to go all out, and the protagonist agrees without hesitating. Right after that, both of them head into the fight, running at the speed of light. Okiyomi decides to go from above while our boy stays on the ground, with pure hatred in his eyes. The Dominator lands his first strike under the monster's head. Suddenly, the protagonist appears and gets ready to deliver a killing blow, but he's forced to back off when a claw is launched at him. Determined to win, the Annihilator throws 3 more to dodge. The guy flips through the air, but when he looks ahead, he realizes the creature is about to run away again. That's when Fuyune shows up and says it's her turn. Takamichi watches the situation upside down, eyes wide open, while the department chief manages to catch up to the monster, which stops running, and then the woman says she won't let it get away. Our boy says that's incredible, while his friend says it's been a long time since he's seen their ally this serious. We find out the adventurer has body reinforcement and insanely fast movement through magic manipulation, and on top of that, a unique skill called Ice Nebula. Excited, the man tells the protagonist not to take his eyes off her, because the girl is really fast. Gripping her katana, Fuyune goes on the attack, leaving the steel snake stunned, watching her opponent's movements. The adventurer decides to start running again. The Annihilator can't even keep up with what's happening, while the department chief takes advantage of that to land hit after hit, jumping into the air as soon as she realizes she's about to be struck. To open up a safe distance with her Ice Nebula skill activated, she starts running again, and back in the air she readies a killing strike. Sensing danger, the giant snake turns to defend itself, but it's too late, because the department chief's katana hits its shell, making a yellow liquid spray everywhere. Mouth hanging open, Yoshito asks how the woman did that, and Kogura explains that her skill boosts her magical power, and since she's a genius when it comes to controlling magic, she ends up landing surgical attacks. Pulling away from the creature, Rito asks for all members to get ready to carry out the extermination of the first-class error. Grabbing his sword, our boy says that apparently it's just him and the man left. Raising her weapon, the department chief gets ready to attack again, but the steel annihilator decides to release all its claws while thrashing around furiously and letting out a roar from its mouth. The Ice Flower team leader says that like this, they won't even be able to get close. The giant snake keeps moving in a frantic way. Thinking, Fuyune says she can't take her eyes off the creature, so she needs to decide what to do fast. All of a sudden, something blasts right past her. When she realizes it's Yoshito, the woman screams, but the guy decides to just ignore it. In the air, he ends up face to face with the enemy's many claws, and as expected, he ends up dying. Our boy revives quickly, like always, and clinging to the creature's own body, says he wants to see how long it's going to keep up that rebellion, especially against him, since he'll always come back thinking. The protagonist says he managed to latch on somehow, changing his respawn position, but now he needs to figure out what to do next. The Annihilator's eyes turn red, and it starts running at high speed, shouting. The guy tells the monster to wait, showing that he's surprised by such agility. Jumping, he says that's cheating. His body ends up slamming full force into the wall, making strawberry juice fly everywhere. But once again, he comes back to life and even makes it through the air. Noticing the young man's presence, the snake throws its claws again, which, in the blink of an eye, get covered in strawberry juice. Reviving for the 3rd time, Takamichi calls his opponent a bastard, then says it's time for him to stop, showing he doesn't take orders. The Annihilator keeps moving, heading toward a hole in the wall. Desperate, the protag screams for the monster to stop. Before letting out an agonizing cry on the upper floors of the tower, we see dust falling from the ceiling until all of a sudden a hole opens up, and the protag comes falling through. His body bounces off the floor several times until he manages to recover. Looking around, he asks what the hell kind of place that is, quickly realizing he's not in a normal area. Narrowing his eyes, our boy says this can only be the snake's nest, stopped right in front of the guy. The creature gets ready to attack, then throws its razor-sharp claws. The protag manages to dodge and the claws end up hitting the ground. Thinking, he says there's no way in hell he can beat the Annihilator alone, which means he'll need the boss and the others to boost their attack power. Fast as lightning, the snake manages to reach the guy, forcing him to jump to defend himself. Glancing back, he quickly finds the hole he came through, and back on solid ground, he decides it's time to run. 3 claws get launched at him again, making his escape even harder. Even so, Yoshito doesn't stop running, determined to reach the hole in the wall, smiling. He says the snake's pretty good at tag, then says that in that case, he'll have to juke it after slipping under the claws. The protag looks back before going into the hole and says he'll see the Annihilator later. Even with all its effort, the monster can't stop the guy from getting away. We go back to the 8th floor where the team is. All of a sudden, Fuyune notices something, and looking ahead sees the guy completely exhausted. He says that somehow he managed to get back nervous. Kogura says the kid had him worried, and our boy quickly apologizes and reveals that despite everything, he made progress. The department chief tells him to start talking, so the protag says he found the steel snake's nest on the floor above. So if everyone goes to attack it there, the situation will be settled once and for all. The woman considers the possibility and asks if the young man noticed any unusually colored stones there. The protag says yes, because the nest was packed with stones in colors different from the ones in the mining area. Without explaining much, Fune says now everything makes sense, then reveals that during the battle, the Ice Flower team analyzed the steel snake's structure, and ended up discovering that the creature uses a pure energy source. But just like there are impure magic stones in the tower, there are also ones with a high level of purity, which she figured would be in unexplored areas, an area the guy ended up finding. The department chief also says that since the magic energy stones are only present in the monster's nest, even with the risk of getting attacked, it won't leave the place, so they need to hurry up and finish the job. All of a sudden, the woman stops walking. Intrigued, the protag asks what happened. Turning around, she says he needs to show the way. A little while later, Yoshito reaches the nest and finds the giant snake making a little O with its mouth. Watching, our boy figures out how the creature refuels. A hand comes out of the hole behind him. It's the team leaders who looks like he had to work like crazy to climb up, sweating. He says the guy did a good job managing to climb up such a steep hole so easily. All of a sudden, Rito and Kogura show up too, both coming out of the hole without any trouble, which leaves the team leader shocked. Moving to the front, the woman says it's time to start the battle, so all members need to go all out and attack at full power. Everyone starts running right away, aiming to destroy the target. The Steel Annihilator quickly notices the group's presence and starts roaring furiously. Okiyomi then says that as a king tamer, against something on that level, he can't show any weakness, so he'll give it everything he's got to send the snake flying. Sensing the man coming closer, the creature opens its giant mouth, but the tamer isn't intimidated, and he lands a killing blow with his flaming sword, causing a crack in the monster's body, which ends up getting launched into the air. A huge boom happens when the Annihilator's body slams into the wall. Smiling, Takemichi says that was awesome, but then all of a sudden, the snake shows it's still alive, and even angrier than ever as it crawls down from the hole it was thrown into. Nervous, the guy says that looks like the attack still wasn't enough to bring the creature down. Without hesitating, the Annihilator fires its many claws toward the team, making everyone have to think really fast to get away. In the middle of the chaos, some adventurers start screaming, while Fuyune focuses on protecting herself. Looking ahead, they realize the fight is far from over. With their swords, 2 team members block the claw attack, shouting that they've beaten plenty of bugs before, so the snake isn't going to kill them with those hits. Yelling, the protag tells the pair to look up, but it's too late, and a shower of strawberry juice ends up happening, leaving the tamer and the department chief worried. Another guy yells for Shima and Hamano, and ends up getting distracted when he looks up. He realizes he's about to get hit too, and closes his eyes. Luckily, our boy manages to get there in time to protect the adventurer, while telling him not to let his guard down, and to save the crying over his teammates' deaths for later, because if he ends up dying, he won't even be able to pay his last respects. Looking at what's left of his friends, the guy says the protag is right, then says he needs to survive. Kogura manages to dodge another attack, and next to Yoshito says the enemy is moving way too much, so they need to figure out fast how to hit it. Fuyune decides to activate her Ice Nebula skill, but in extreme expansion mode, the woman takes off running, making ice spring up everywhere, and apologizing says that if she were stronger, no one there would have gotten hurt. Confused, the protag calls out to the chief, who now has completely white hair. Transformed, Rito says the fight ends here. The Steel Annihilator opens its huge mouth again, then fires its deadly claws, but Fuyune doesn't seem scared of anything, and charges in, dodging the mechanical arms in a spectacular way. The woman ends up face to face with one of the claws, but once again she manages to get away, taking the chance to use her katana and cut one of the monster's arms clean off. More claws fly at her fast, forcing her to jump again and again, until she's facing all of them. Using the ground sometimes, the department chief shows she's unbeatable, and with her eyes glowing a shade of blue, she slices several claws at once, making the snake scream. Cornered, the Steel Annihilator starts to run, then turns to chomp Rito with its mouth, but it ends up crashing into a pile of rocks, while the woman says she's going to take its head. As a prize, the department chief's katana gets even bigger and covered in ice, making the monster realize that now there are no more ways out. Falling, Fuyune starts her finishing blow, but the snake widens its blue eye and manages to move its head, in time making the woman hit only the wall, causing a huge powerful explosion on the ground. The department chief sizes up the situation until, all of a sudden, the snake's body slams into her back, sending her flying hard. The woman smashes into the wall violently, leaving Yoshito, who was watching, worried. We see the adventurer's katana got stuck in the ground, thinking, our boy says his sword isn't sharp enough to cut through the snake's steel body. But if he uses Rito's weapon, which is infused with magic, things could be different. Turning around, the creature quickly realizes something is coming, and immediately activates its power to get back into the fight, breaking out in a cold sweat. Our boy takes a deep breath, and when the snake comes charging straight at him, he says it can eat him. Once again, his strawberry juice flies everywhere, respawning somewhere else and grabbing the chief's weapon. He says that meal is going to cost the enemy, because even if he can't be as fast as the woman, all he really needs to win is one single perfect hit. But for that, the protag decides he'll have to die one more time, and after respawning says he'd normally pass on that kind of approach, if it weren't for the fact that this time, when he kills himself, he can show up right in front of the snake. We see his first strike hits the Annihilator, but, with hate in his eyes, Takamichi, he lands the killing blow on the enemy, right near its head, and just like that, the monster's body falls apart, while everyone watches with their mouths hanging open, including Fuyune, who's down on the ground. Landing, our boy shows what he can do. Getting back on her feet, the department chief's hair turns black again, and with her back to him, she thanks the protagonist, saying that, with that, the deaths of her subordinates weren't for nothing. Behind her, the guy says he's at her disposal, but a notification pops up, grabbing his attention. When he reads the message, he finds out the Annihilator was the boss of Proteus's magic tower. Confused, he asks Rito what that means, and she then says she finally managed to understand, because before she'd said the tower didn't have any special characteristics, but now she realizes she was wrong, since, with the monster info she got from the reports, she ended up noticing there were creatures that could change their arms and others that could disguise themselves as rocks. Like among other quirks described, one thing all the monsters have in common is the fact that they all hide their true forms, and the steel Annihilator wandering all over the tower was the one that hid its true nature the most. Looking at the creature, Yoshito asks if the chief means the snake was the boss of that tower. The woman says yes, then adds that normally a boss doesn't leave its room on the top floor, so what happened was pretty rare. Our boy says he gets it, and that he ended up landing the finishing blow. Intrigued, the woman asks if he didn't want that scratching his head. The guy says that honestly, if it weren't for her, Okiyomi, and the Ice Flower team, he wouldn't have pulled it off, and even if he talked big earlier, people died, which means that in the end he needs to get a lot stronger. Proteus's tower starts to disappear. We're taken to the administration department, where the protagonist hands over, without hesitating, the item he got to Rito. Curious, the woman asks if the object dropped from the tower. Our boy says yes, and then hands over. Right after that, a bunch of magic stones. Seeing the pile of items, the chief says that's basically harassment. The guy says it's not. After all, beating the boss was everyone's achievement, so it's not fair for only him to get the reward, so he chose to hand the reward over to the administration department, with Kogura's approval, and Fuyune should use it to help other adventurers. After the meeting, the pair leave the room and end up running into Rito, from the Ice Flower team. Walking up, the young man says that, to be honest, he'd been waiting for them, because he has a favor to ask. Getting straight to the point, he says that, as the two of them probably know, the exploration of the great demonic tower of Zeus will start soon, which his team will be taking part in, and once again he'll be the leader, but after the last operation, he doesn't want to see his teammates die anymore. Catching the protagonist off guard, Rito begs them to train him. We find out that, after the events of taking down the steel Annihilator, a month has passed, and in the department building, we see the Ice Flower team leader panting. With his power activated, the guy starts running, heading straight for Kogura, who immediately manages to block the attack. The two of them start an intense exchange of blows, even getting blocked over and over. The black-haired guy doesn't give up, and attacks again with determination. Looking back, the Dominator realizes Yoshito is going to attack him too, and without any effort, puts his sword in front of his body to stop the young man, while also sending him and the team leader flying back. In midair, the protagonist doesn't let go of his sword for even a second. Same with the other young man. With a hand on his hip, the Dominator says the two of them are still way too naive, so they need to start pushing themselves harder. We go back a month earlier, to the moment the black-haired young man asked the pair to train him. With a hand on his head, our boy says he's not strong enough for that because he's also in training, which Proteus was part of grabbing the guy by the shoulder. Rito says, desperate, that in that case he'd like to train with him. Startled, the protagonist agrees, while trying to push the adventurer away with his hands. Smiling, Okiyomi says that if that's how it is, he'll train both of them, since the Zeus exploration still hasn't started yet. Back in the present, Yoshito says it's been a month of training every day in the training room on the Magic Tower lot, but he still can't rely only on his status to pull off combat techniques, and even though he feels like he's improved a lot, he's still no match for the Dominator. With sweat running down his face, he yells at the top of his lungs that the man is monstrously strong as he charges in. Dodging the blow, Kogura says that even so, the kid and Fuyune were the most useful during the last battle, which means the compatibility factor between the challenger and the monster still exists. So if the pair can get stronger, they'll be able to hold the line even if they're incompatible with the creature. About to be attacked, our boy thinks that even with him and Rito going all out, they never managed to even scratch the man, and he wonders how he's so strong the protagonist manages to get away from the attack. But suddenly, the leader of the Ice Flower team shouts his name. Getting the message, both of them charge at the Dominator again, going for a multi-direction attack, The problem is that Okiyomi isn't messing around and activating his ability. He says he'll dominate the area with his intense heat. Terrified, the protagonist realizes they're screwed now. A huge explosion of flames happens. Sitting down and leaning against the wall, the pair concludes there's no way. Looking back, the man says their coordination has improved. Standing up, Takemichi says that doesn't matter at all, if they still can't beat him. The Dominator then says the goal there isn't to win, but to manage to channel both of their full strength into a magic tower. Rito says that doesn't make the situation any less frustrating. Chuckling, Kogura tells them to push themselves harder. Then the three decide to leave. Suddenly something catches our boy's attention, and he quickly calls out to his friends. Looking at the screen, the man says the time has come. Determined, the leader of the Ice Flower team clenches his fist and says that this time, he'll protect his subordinates. A few days later, at the testing site for candidates to take part in the attack operation on Zeus, a man announces that the skill check is about to begin, so everyone there should form teams to challenge him in Fuyune. After the explanation, the guy with glasses asks the first people in line to step forward. Staring at them, the department head says Yoshito told her about them, then says it's time for both of them to show how strong they've managed to get. Right away, Yuri and Mana get ready to fight. We're taken to Zeus's great magic tower, more specifically to the 60th floor, where Okiyomi and Yoshito are. We find out the tower conquest operation has begun, and everyone who was chosen to take part has already arrived. Our boy says a lot of people really did show up, and as he explains, the Dominator says everyone there are adventurers with different roles, where some will be on the front line, and others will provide support in the safe area, with that being the meeting point. Turning around, the protagonist asks where Rito is. Answering, the man says the Ice Flower team will be sent as the main support force in the battle, so they'll only see the young man after the operation moves forward more. Joking, the kid says in that case, until then, they can't die. The Dominator says that's easy for him to say, and then both of them burst out laughing. From far away, someone asks what's wrong with the two of them. For them not to be feeling the tension in the air, annoyed, the stranger yells to get the pair's attention, then says that if they came there to mess around, they'd better go back home. Turning around, Yoshito and Kogura look at the kid with a dark stare, making him tremble in his boots. Our boy lets out a little chuckle. Then he and the man walk over and say the kid doesn't need to be so tense. After all, from here on out, whether they like it or not, everyone's going to be thrown headfirst into a ruthless environment. We find out Zeus is a colossal-scale magic tower with more than 150 floors, and up to that point, 59 have been conquered, and the huge number of deaths in the conquest of the 60th floor forced the department to organize a conquest operation. Thinking, the protagonist wonders what could have killed so many people. In a hot area like that, sweating, he says it's like the sun is right over his head. Beside him, the Dominator says that as soon as they enter the hot zone, it's like they start taking damage, with group healing magic being the only way to keep going, so if something happens to the adventurers responsible for that part, they're screwed. And then the man claps his hands to get everyone's attention, and then he tells everyone it'll be necessary to work as a group. That way, the ones responsible for healing should focus on that, while the rest protect them. Thinking it over, our boy gets worried about the possibility of starting to take damage because of his inversion ability, an ability he still hasn't told anyone about, so he won't draw unwanted attention. Looking around at the surroundings, the kid he says that if heat damage is treated like a status condition, just like Persephone's curse, but before he can finish his thought, a message pops up, warning that because of the heat wave, he'll take continuous damage. But just like the protagonist figured, his reversal skill takes care of everything, and he won't even need healing magic. Walking up, the young guy calls out to the tamer and says he's resistant to heat, so he'll go ahead and check if it's safe. Everyone's left with their mouths open watching the kid walk off. Then they conclude there's nothing they can do. Still running, Yoshito says he knows he pushed it, but he had to do that to keep up appearances. Out of nowhere, something nails him dead on, making him faceplant into the ground, while his strawberry juice gets sprayed out. Before blacking out, our boy realizes he fell into an ambush, and reviving again, he says the enemies really are cheaters. Seeing the young guy is back, the creatures get ready to attack next. They all rush him with daggers in hand. Luckily, the protagonist manages to grab his sword to block the strikes, making the hell mosquitoes have to back off. Grinning, he says he trained for a whole month, so if it's a straight-up fight, he won't go down easy. Closing in, our boy throws his first strike, but the monsters quickly fly off to another spot. Seeing what his opponents look like, Takemichi wonders if those are angel wings, then concludes he'll have to fight the squad of holy assassins. Worried, he says angels that are from hell don't sound like anything good, saying as he runs that either way, whatever. Quickly, the kid manages to get close to the creatures and attack to protect itself. One of them pulls out a different kind of weapon, forcing the protagonist to jerk his head hard to stay alive and keep breathing. Staring down the monster, he says if this were a month ago, he would have fallen for that trick, but now that won't work. Seeing nothing seems to shake the enemies, our boy says they really are tough, just like you'd expect from monsters from a huge magic tower. All of a sudden, a dagger flies at him. Luckily, he manages to knock it away, showing why they're hell angels. The creatures regroup, but this time to run away. The protagonist decides to chase after them, but he quickly realizes he's being lured deeper into the place. In the middle of the heat and flames, he asks where they went, but there's no buzzing at all, completely still, and not saying a word. Yoshito reads the situation. Suddenly, the monsters drop down from the ceiling. The protagonist's eyes go wide, shocked, and grabbing his sword again, he manages to jump back and get away without a scratch from the strike, which only hits the ground. But out of nowhere, yellow crystals fly at him, and when he realizes they're bombs, it's already too late. An explosion goes off, blasting him away. Trying to stay on his feet, Our boy wonders what's up with those explosive magic stones, but before he can get any explanation, another explosion goes off, making him scream as he goes flying. This time his attempt to stay standing fails. Seeing the kid went down, the angels start moving and spreading a rain of explosives as they do, shaking and sweating. The protagonist says this has got to be a joke, before getting hit dead on by a colossal explosion, which this time sends him straight back to spawn. Reviving again, he tells the monsters to stop getting so full of themselves. After taking a hit, one of the creatures hits the ground to protect their ally, the others throw daggers, but the protagonist manages to dodge every single one, and slipping away from yet another explosion. He says he's got it now. Without hesitating, he lands a killing blow. But another angel shows up right behind him, forcing him to spin around fast and counterattack. From the impact, the creature gets launched away. Seeing that, our boy smiles, and as he closes in, he says he'll give his opponent an explosive death too. Then he drives in his sword, while magic stones fly everywhere. The angel raises its arm, shaking all over. We see Takamichi already booked it, and the creature gets swallowed by the explosion it caused itself. Our boy watches everything from a distance, noticing as he gets back up, some marks on his arm. Surprised, he says light burns are healing really fast with the reversal of intense heat. Suddenly, a message appears saying that since the number of explosive magic stones, the source of the heat has decreased, the continuous damage caused by the intense heat has been reduced, and looking at the stones, the protagonist finally figures out why it feels like hell in there, since the magic stones are concentrated right in that area, which means if he destroys them all, the intense heat won't be a problem anymore. Running, our boy kicks off his plan, causing another huge explosion that covers the whole area. Meanwhile, in a safer zone, the team looks over the situation, nervous. A guy yells and says his HP is dropping, so the other adventurers need to move fast with healing magic. Scared, a pink-haired girl activates her staff, making everyone's health get restored. The problem is, the process leaves her exhausted. Suddenly, the guy starts yelling again, asking why she's resting, instead of just casting another heal already, since their lives are in her hands. Someone grabs the young man by the shoulder. Leaning in close, Kagura asks if he doesn't think he's pushing her too hard, then thinking that the situation is bad, since the monster's attacks are brutal, which makes everyone's vitality there drop over time, and there's nothing they can do to make it worse. Red eyes appear behind the adventurer with healing power. The tamer turns around when he hears a scream, freaked out. The other adventurers say a monster took down healer. A girl comes up and says she'll heal her, but a hand grabs her clothes. The annoying guy shows up and tells her to let the girl die, because instead of wasting heals on her, she needs to heal the others. Suddenly, something starts coming down from above. It's one of the Hell Angels, watching the pair. Luckily for them, the tamer shows up and takes care of the threat, but the problem is the creature wasn't alone. Seeing monsters heading toward the group, he realizes he let some slip by. Chaos breaks out fast, with people running and screaming in his head. The man says everyone there is already at their limit, and if this keeps up, everything's going to be lost. Suddenly, Yoshido shows up and says that apparently he made the right call destroying the explosive stones. The tamer shouts the guy's name. Seeing the main guy, the annoying adventurer asks if he came back to get healing magic, saying then that a useless guy like him, who runs off ahead, is only going to make things worse. The words make our boy smile, and then he says he's actually not useless, since he destroyed all the heat sources, which will ease everyone's suffering. In just a few seconds after a countdown, everyone realizes the atmosphere changed. Fighting, Kogura says the guy first ran into a zone of intense heat and then came back to get rid of the intense heat, which means things are never boring with him around. Turning, the main guy asks the adventurer who insulted him who's useless. Now, still annoyed, the young man quietly says thanks. The tamer then says that thanks to him, the others manage to calm down, which will help them a lot to push forward. The pair do a little celebratory fist bump. We find out the intense heat zone covered floors, 61 to 64, and that Takamichi pushed ahead and destroyed every stone he could. Because of that, there were no casualties on the front line, and the group moves smoothly through the floors. Somewhere else, lit by torches and with cracks in the ground, a Hell Angel pulls a chain. While others watch the situation, suddenly something seems to start coming out of the ground. A creature that's a mix of a snake and a three-headed flying dragon. Elsewhere in the tower, Okiomi announces to everyone that they just arrived on the 65th floor. Suddenly, something catches the main guy's attention. He turns and says a teleport portal has been activated too. Beside him, the man says that'll make it easier to go back and forth between the lower floors. But before anything else, they need to let everyone rest in the safe area on the lower floor. Completely exhausted, the annoying adventurer asks how the pair still have energy after all that. Thinking, our boy figures the reason is that he was trained by the tamer, playing it off. He says he trained hard until not long ago, but the most important thing is they can rest there, while he and the man scout the surroundings. Seeing the guy was about to argue, the main guy says he doesn't need to worry about their fighting strength, since from that moment on they'll have support from the Ice Flower group. Ryudo shows up and says they finally met up, then saying that the monsters left behind were defeated by his team, and that the people supporting the rear started gathering resources, so they've got some free time. Looking at our boy, the young man says he showed up right on time. Greeting the adventurer, the main guy thanks him for the help, while the others feel relieved. Sometime later we see the team exploring Kogura, then comments that apparently there isn't a heat wave on this floor, and as he turns around, Yoshito asks if it'll be easier to push forward. But the leader of the Ice Flower team says not necessarily, because based on his experience there are floors where the situation changes drastically, and mid-boss rooms are everywhere in that tower, which would be a problem if Zeus weren't huge. Seeing the protagonist's stance, Rito gets confused. Our boy then says that this time, the guy really needs to protect his subordinates. Intrigued, the young man asks why he said that, finding out quickly that it's because they've just arrived in a boss room. After opening the doors, the team starts entering the hall, seeing everything pitch black in front of him. The protagonist says that seriously, those bastards never give them a break. Suddenly red eyes appear, and the three-headed creature shows who owns the place. Its name is Annihilator Hydra. Shouting, the team leader tells his companions to get ready for battle, To keep the creature from deciding how the fight will go, the monster charges at the group with each head going in a different direction. Intrigued, our boy wonders why the Hydra is chained up, then says something's off, so Rito shouldn't let his guard down. Quickly, the team manages to restrain the creature's 3 heads, which end up getting yanked along with the chains. The black-haired guy takes a deep breath, looking relieved. But then, all of a sudden the monster starts moving, and new heads pop out instantly. Mouth hanging open, the protagonist says the Hydra has regeneration, and now that it broke the chains, it's finally completely free to do whatever it wants. Extending its claw, the monster gets ready to grab Rito first. Worried, Takamichi yells for the guy, but he tells him not to worry. After all, they did the same training. After being blocked, the creature starts looking for other targets. While the Ice Flower team leader says he's not going to die with one mouth open and one paw raised, the Hydra gets ready to attack other members of the group, but the guy stops it, running in and saying he's not going to let his subordinates die either. Because one thing the monster doesn't know is that everyone there went through brutal training and countless challenges. Suddenly, a sphere of energy starts forming in the creature's mouth, but everyone manages to dodge the attack, and in midair, Ryudo says his team has no dead weight. The 4 of them get ready to attack in a coordinated way, so they all strike with their swords at one specific point. Watching the battle, Yoshito says the team's moves really are more coordinated now, and beside him Kogura agrees and says they don't need to worry about the group, so they should just jump in and attack too. While running, the protagonist says the Hydra is regenerating the cut-off heads, but the other wounds aren't healing, which means they should focus on other parts besides the head. Disagreeing, the tamer says the creature's body is way too big, and even if they deal damage on the surface, they won't be able to do anything fatal. So first they need to figure out why the heads regenerate, and that'll only happen if another head gets cut off. As he swings his greatsword, the man seems to have gotten the situation and yells for the guy to use magic analysis. Quickly, our boy obeys and activates his skill, then concludes that in the head that got cut off, there's a huge magical flow, explaining. He says there's a magic core connected to each neck, which is why the creature regenerates so fast, which means there's only one thing to do. Charging in with his ally, our boy says it's time to destroy the cores. When it's attacked, the Hydra roars fiercely and decides to start using its wings, kicking up a gust that makes Takamichi shield his eyes. Everyone watches the creature take off, until suddenly spheres of energy come out of its mouth again and get fired toward the team. In the middle of the chaos, the guy and the tamer try not to get hit. Out of nowhere, a piece of the chain appears in the air and almost hits our boy. Thinking, he says it looks like there's a seal on the collar. The man asks what happened. Turning around, the protagonist says the collar caught his attention. Kogura says he saw the seals, and says that they're probably what's sealing each head's attacks. Still intrigued, Yoshito wonders why. Then one of the collars has a seal in a different color, and why the red seal is giving off more magic than the others. Our boy quickly concludes that one of the heads is stronger than the others, which means there's a head that still hasn't attacked yet. Right, the one in the middle, and if the collar with the red seal is hers, things are gonna get complicated. Watching the Hydra up in the air, he realizes it's getting ready for another attack, and it'll definitely come from the head that hasn't been used yet. A huge fireball gets launched toward the team, and when it hits the ground it releases these black lightning-like bolts. Shouting, Okiyomi says everyone needs to dodge right now. Obeying, the group jumps into the air. Worried, the protagonist thinks the electricity spread through the whole hall and there's nowhere to run. All of a sudden, Raiju yells out of nowhere saying the energy isn't fading, and when the team members step on the ground, they end up getting electrocuted. Nervous, our boy says he finally figured out what the creature's plan was. Even while getting shocked, the tamer stays steady. But then it's the kid's turn to put his foot on the ground, and unlike the man, he starts screaming. Realizing right after that, even though it hurt, the hit wasn't enough to kill him, which means the others should be fine. But when he looks back, he finds out that's not really the case. Not understanding anything, Takamichi asks what happened. A message pops up, warning that in the paralysis state the target will become completely unable to act when affected, but thanks to his inversion ability, nothing happened. Looking at the tamer, the kid thinks that this was totally outside his plans, and to make it worse, now he'll have to face the Hydra alone. The monster locks onto the young guy without hesitating. Then it fires off several energy spheres. Running, our boy wonders what he's gonna do. Because besides not being able to finish the creature, if it aims its attacks at the rest of the team, everyone's gonna go down all at once. Lost in his thoughts, he doesn't notice when the monster gets close, and he ends up getting thrown far away by one of its wings, slamming into the wall. The protagonist says he only had to think it, and the monster started doing it, but he won't allow it. An energy sphere gets launched toward the members who are paralyzed, but the protagonist steps in front and gets the worst of it, then reviving right in front of one of the enemy's heads, which, without hesitating, lands another blow. Once again, Yoshito dies and revives. Seeing another attack coming, he says he won't be able to stop both heads, while the creature stares at him with its red eyes. Suddenly Mana shows up and says she'll take the head on the right, while Yuri takes the one on the left. A bit farther back, the young woman agrees. The protagonist looks behind him, startled. At the door, the dark-haired challenger readies her attack and says her friend can leave it to her, showing she's stronger than ever. Sakia launches herself into the air, spinning non-stop, and when she gets close enough, she draws her 2 swords. Her eyes lock onto the Hydra's neck, so, with several rapid consecutive strikes, she does her part of the job. With the attack, the creature fires an energy sphere, which ends up hitting the ceiling. But our boy realizes something's off, and looking at another sphere, he figures he won't be able to stop the attack this time. Shiramachi tells him not to worry because she'll intercept the hit. Using the staff she got, she launches a ball of water that collides with the Hydra's energy sphere, causing a huge explosion in shades of blue. Part of the flames hits the creature, which now only has 2 heads left. Coming closer, the 2 challengers ask what Takamichi thought about the fact they got stronger. Confused, the protagonist asks why they're there, explaining the blonde girl says they both volunteered for the attack team and got Fuyuni's permission to go after him, so this time they won't be a burden to the young guy anymore. Hearing that, our boy starts having flashbacks to when they were a team and when the girls decided to leave, but they promised they'd come back and they really were telling the truth. A smile spreads across his face before he says he can tell they're stronger, so it's up to the three of them to wipe out the Hydra. Revealing what he already knows, the protagonist says that to stop the heads from regenerating, they'll need to destroy the magic core inside its body. But first of all, Yuri has to use her magic detection to find where it is. In a few seconds, the young woman says she found it. Our boy says they'll need to pierce the core with magic, and asks if she can do it. Determined, the challenger says he can leave it to her, then activating her staff. While keeping the detection skill active, without hesitating, Shiramachi launches her attack, heading straight for the monster's neck, but it can't defend itself in time, and a hole shows up where the core used to be. Excited, Yoshito says that now that head can't regenerate anymore. All of a sudden, the creature takes flight again, quickly realizing what's going on. The protag says it's planning to paralyze them, so they need to counterattack while there's still time. The guy and Mana charge at the beast with everything they've got, and together they get ready to land a coordinated strike. They both aim in different directions, forcing the creature to throw the sphere at the protag right in front of it. Down below, the bold brunette yells for her ally. Up in the air, our boy figures the Hydra is smarter than they thought since it managed to set up another attack casting a spell. Shiramachi says it's fine, because she'll be faster. Another one of the monster's cores goes flying. The creature ends up screaming and out of strength drops to the ground. But showing it's not over yet, it fires another energy sphere, heading straight for the staff-wielding girl. Sensing something coming, her eyes go wide while her friends start screaming. Out of nowhere, Riddick shows up and says that just when he managed to recover from the paralysis, he's gonna get hit again, but at least this time, he'll be able to protect his allies. Nervous, the protag calls out to him and asks him not to do that. Taking a deep breath, the ice team leader starts to smile and right before getting hit head-on, says that's his wish. Everyone watches with their mouths hanging open. As the guy's body gets blown away by the explosion, we see that, apparently, Riddijo isn't among the living anymore. Reaching the other side of the hall, he slams into a wall, and when the dust settles, we find out the young man has a bunch of injuries. With 2 cores down, the Hydra lets out a roar. Furious, Yoshito curses at the creature. But then, all of a sudden, Kagura appears. The man leans on his own sword, trying to stay on his feet, breaking out in a cold sweat. He apologizes to the protag, thinking to himself, our boy says the ice team has started getting back up too, which means Riddijo's sacrifice wasn't for nothing. Turning forward, he warns the tamer that he's going to cut off the creature's head, and asks if the man can help him. Taking a deep breath, Okiyomi raises his sword and says he doesn't need to ask twice. The two of them rush the beast, which stares them down head-on. Recovered, the Hydra decides to charge up another energy sphere and throws it at the pair to protect itself. But it didn't count on Yuri being faster and intercepting its attack with her magic. The girl stays alert to see what happens next. Once again, the monster starts to roar and decides to beat its wings to get away. But Mana appears in the air, determined to put an end to this. With her power activated, the girl lands a blow to the enemy's torso before jumping up to create some distance. With that attack, the Hydra finally collapses to the ground, and now it's Kogura's turn to do his part. Getting close enough, the man leaves the creature with one less head, which quickly starts the regeneration process, determined not to let that happen. Yoshito gets ready to deliver a killing blow, saying he won't let the monster get back up again. His sword ends up hitting the last remaining core, but not satisfied, he decides to put a bit more force into it. Somewhere else, someone says their beloved servant's life was taken. It's a woman with long blonde hair and bright eyes, and then she asks who did that. Back at the battlefield, everyone gathers around Rito holding the guy in his arms. Our boy calls out to him, who, surprisingly, opens his eyes, while asking the young man not to make that ugly face. After all, he was ready to die, but luckily he's still alive, and he just needs treatment and a bit of rest to be able to fight alongside Yoshito again. Hearing him talk, the protag breaks down crying. But then, all of a sudden, the leader of the Ice Flower team seems to stop breathing, which makes our boy panic. Far from there, the mysterious woman says that presence is infinite resurrection and, looking up at the sky as she holds out her hands, she says that she'll finally be able to see him again. Our video ends here. If you liked it, leave your like. See you next time. Bye-bye.